Good morning, everyone. Today, Wednesday, September 1, 2021, it is the 20th anniversary Professional Development Symposium in partnership with the Jamaica Diaspora Taskforce Action Network. Under the theme, 20th Anniversary, CCCJ at 20, Expanding Possibilities. For today's theme, specific to the symposium, we are going to reimagine assessment. Allow me to introduce to you our very distinguished guests, the Honorable Favour Williams, Minister of Education, Youth and Information, other representatives from the Ministry of Education, Youth and Information, Mr. Leo Gilling, Chairman, Jamaica Diaspora Taskforce Action Network, Dr. Maureen Nelson, past Principal, Montego Bay Community College and current President of the Association of Principal and Vice Principals of Community Colleges, Dr. Dosseth Edwards Watson, Principal, Trenchtown Polytechnic College and Chairperson of the CCCJ's Events Management Committee, other distinguished principals of member colleges of the CCCJ, our Executive Director, CCCJ and Master of Ceremony, Dr. Powell Wilson, Dr. Noel Gordon, Keynote Speaker, Educational Consultant, Founder and CEO of Human Resources Initiative, Presidents, Principals of other tertiary institutions, both public and private, other presenters, faculty members, CCCJ Secretariat staff, and other tertiary institutions representatives. Faculty, well-wishers all, pleasant morning. We will begin with our prayer led by Dr. Powell Wilson, our Executive Director of the CCCJ.
Good morning, Dr. Ramjeet, our Master of Ceremonies. Having established the protocols, may I invite us to pray. Lord, we thank you for this another day. We thank you, Lord, for your blessings. We thank you, Lord, for your mercies, which are new every morning. We thank you, Lord, for the opportunity you have given to us where we can meet here in this fashion to participate in a professional development activity. We thank you, Lord, for the knowledge that will be shared. We thank you, Lord, for the lessons that will be learned. I pray, Lord, that as we go through these 2 days, what we learn, Lord, we will impart them to our students as we advance education. I pray, Lord, for stability in the internet, electricity, all the resources that we will use so that we'll have a good 2 days of professional development sessions. Have your own sweet way, I pray. Amen.
Thank you, Dr. Powell Wilson. A correction to be made. I named Dr. Powell Wilson as the Master of Ceremony. However, this task was given to me quite recently, and so it is that I would have been reading from my old notes. A pleasant day to you all. The sun is shining. We have a lot to give thanks for. It is now 9:15 a.m. and this session is quite time sensitive. Our Honorable Minister will have to depart at around 9:30, and so we move with some amount of alacrity in this event. The following greetings will be made by our Honorable Minister, then Mr. Leo Gilling, followed by our Chairperson of Events and Principal of the Polytechnic College, Dr. Dossett Edwards Watson, followed by our President of the Association of Principals and Presidents of Community Colleges, Dr. Maureen Nelson. We will take these greetings in this order, but before we do that, allow me to introduce myself. I am Davia Ramjeet, Principal of Knox Community College, a founding member college of the CCCJ. Honorable Minister.
Thank you so much. Good morning, everyone. Let me acknowledge Ms. Ramjeet, our moderator for today. Let me begin as well by acknowledging Dr. Donna Powell-Wilson, Executive Director of CCCJ, Mr. Leo Gillens, Chairman, Jamaica Diaspora Taskforce Action Network, Dr. Maureen Nelson, Principal, Montego Bay Community College, and President, Association of Principals and Vice Principals of Community Colleges, Dr. Dossett Edwards Watson, Principal, Trenchtown Polytechnic College and Chairperson, CCCJ's Event Management Committee, all the council members of CCCJ, Dr. Noel Gordon, the keynote speaker, all our educational consultants, principals, presidents of community colleges and other tertiary institutions, presenters, faculty members, CCCJ staff, other tertiary institutions representatives. Good morning, all. Thank you for the invitation to join with you in your special 20th anniversary symposium and celebrations of the Council of Community Colleges of Jamaica, the CCCJ. Anniversaries are always good opportunities for reflection and forward planning. And I am sure you have been doing that in the lead up to this morning's symposium. There's much to be thankful for, most notably the growth in the number of community colleges, the expanded program offerings, and your partnership with other stakeholders in the education system. As you know, community colleges have become a vital part of the post-secondary and higher education systems in many countries, due in part to their accessibility, flexibility, and most important, their affordability. They provide options for students who may not otherwise pursue post-secondary education. Community colleges in Jamaica began to make their mark on the educational landscape nearly 50 years ago with the advent of Excelsior and Knox community colleges. One of their mandates was to offer sixth form programs and to increase access to tertiary level education. 3 other community colleges and 3 teachers' colleges embraced this mandate, and by the early 1990s, Jamaica had 5 community and 3 multidisciplinary colleges. Over the years, you have set high standards in your curriculum offerings and quality assurance, and your certificates, associate degrees, and bachelor's degrees are accredited by the University Council of Jamaica, UCJ, the national accrediting body. As you continue to maintain the high standards expected of all Jamaican tertiary institutions, you have been developing new programs, sometimes in collaboration with the Heart Trust, NSTA, to respond to the demands of the business sector. You have also used your initiative to meet the needs of communities and by extension, the country. Your theme for this symposium, Reimagining Assessment, brings into sharp focus the need for educational institutions to be flexible and responsive to changing national demands and realities. The phenomenal and rapid growth in the use of information communication technology, the evolving digital landscape, and the disruptions caused by the COVID-19 pandemic to teaching and learning as generally practiced have brought to the forefront the imperative of reassessing what we do and how we do it in the education sector. The modalities of accessing students and enabling capacity building are among current concerns. I appreciate that many initiatives being more fully implemented predated the pandemic. Yet we can all agree that the past year and a half has pushed us to see the challenges as opportunities in ways we had not previously done. The transition from classroom or traditional teaching to online teaching has placed a lot of demand on administrators, instructors, and teachers, institutions and their systems, course designers, and students, among other, often without adequate preparation for this new phase. Within this context, community colleges must continue the push to be innovative and in striving to serve the needs of your various stakeholders. There's much work to be done, but I believe the community colleges and the council are prepared for it. You have consistently improved your services. You must continue to improve your use of technology. The Ministry of Education, Youth and Information applauds your efforts and will continue to offer our support. The signing of a memorandum of understanding to enable more of our secondary level schools to launch or expand their sixth form program, some in collaboration with community colleges, is among the area of collaboration with which we are very pleased. I want to say congratulations on your progress to date, and that I am indeed extremely happy that the Ministry of Education, Youth and Information was able to take to Parliament and get past the amendment to the CCCJ Act to ensure that the work that you do going forward has the full backing of the law. My prayerful hope is that even as you discuss your selected themes and assess where we are, that you will all strive to respond to today's challenges with creativity and innovation. I therefore take great pleasure in declaring this symposium officially open. Thank you, and God bless you all.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. A very fitting greeting and opening to our 20th anniversary, and of significance, your impact in influencing the amendment that has been long awaited by our member colleges. We applaud your efforts. We thank you for your diligence and commitment to education. And just to note also that we have twin objectives as a council. One, to supervise and coordinate the work of the colleges, and two, to exercise at least three functions: regulatory, promotional, and developmental. And it is so fitting for us to have our minister declare us open today, bringing us a reflection on all the work and worth of the CCCJ. I now invite our next presenter to greet us, Mr. Leo Gilling from JDTAN. Thank you, sir, for joining.
Thank you, and good morning to you. Thank you, everybody. And I want to recognize the great work of Minister of Education, and also the fact that she was able to prepare the protocol list for me so that I don't have to go all the way through the list. I want to recognize her, and also everyone here on the panel, and also the persons who are viewing from various states, various parts of Jamaica. Good morning. A hearty congratulations on the 20th anniversary of the Council of Community Colleges of Jamaica. Congratulations. This project has been coming for some time. I'm happy to see that it's here. Congratulations on this particular symposium. I think the best way for my greetings is to is to tell you a little bit about the Jamaica Diaspora Education Task Force, currently with 13 task forces of various sectors, including education, which is our flagship task force. And the Education Task Force started back in 2013 and was very successful in the next 2 years up to 2015, when the Agriculture Task Force, the Technology Task Force, and other task forces like the Crime Intervention and Prevention, Immigration, and Technology Task Forces were all born, and we all operated independently until 2019, when JDTAN was born. That's the Jamaica Diaspora Task Force Action Network, when we started with the five or six task forces. Our resources were much more than what we intended it for, so we ended up with 13 such task forces on various sectors. Today, in 2019, we started with about 80 members from the various task forces and quickly jumped to 420 in 3 days. And today we have 1,500 members across 38 countries. As I said, in 2019, we started the JDTAN. JDTAN is built on several planks, and some of which are to partner and to collaborate and support stakeholders in Jamaica and across the diaspora, but mainly in Jamaica. Another plank is that we put people first. We, in all areas of our work, it is about assessing needs, assessing the needs of people, assessing the needs of institutions and our stakeholders, so that we can put our resources where those needs are. We are also in the business of developing our leaders. So as we identify our leaders, we create opportunities for them to be stronger, better leaders who can deliver interventions, deliver all types of developments for Jamaica through Vision 2030 and the SDGs, the Sustainable Development Goals. We also, another plank is to deliver the resources that we can to build capacity and to enhance development through these, the National Development Goals, keeping those in mind. And so it is amazing for me to see that all of these planks, putting all of them together, has brought us to CCCJ, a very worthy organization. I met Dr. Donald Powell a year ago, but we've been working with several community colleges, Excelsior, Brownstone. We've worked with all the teachers' colleges across Jamaica, or most of the ministries doing a lot of work in creating and developing and creating developments across Jamaica. We are really happy, and we're looking forward to these 2 days, these 2 exciting days of workshops, and also we're also looking forward to more developments, more collaborations, more of what we do of assessing needs and providing resources to fill those needs. And with that in mind, we're looking forward to working with the CCCJ in the future. Thank you so much, and you have a wonderful day.
Thank you, Mr. Gillen. We're very pleased to have you here with us for 2 days of our symposium. We want to also commend the work of the JDTAN, having been a very new yet promising entity with 1,500 members. That's awesome. I also want to commend you that you would have joined us through partnerships as we work to effectively carry out our mission, which is to respond to today's challenges, creating tomorrow's opportunities by promoting intellectual discovery, entrepreneurial skills, social and ethical awareness, and economic opportunities for all through education that transforms lives, builds community, and improves society locally and internationally. I do believe this is a fruitful partnership. Thank you again. We now move to our chairperson of events management, Dr. Doseth Edwards Watson.
Thank you, Madam Master of Ceremonies. Honorable Favour Williams, Minister of Education, Youth and Information, other representatives of the Ministry of Education, Youth and Information, Mr. Leo Gilling, Chairman of Jamaica Diaspora Taskforce Action Network, Dr. Maureen Nelson, Principal, Montego Bay Community College and President, Association of Principals and President of Community Colleges, members of the Council of Community Colleges of Jamaica, Dr. Powell Wilson, Executive Director, Council of the Community Colleges of Jamaica, Dr. Noel Gordon, Keynote Speaker, Educational Consultant, Founder and CEO of Human Resources Initiative, principals and presidents of community colleges and other tertiary institutions, distinguished presenters, faculty members, staff of the CCCJ, representative of other tertiary institutions. A pleasant good morning to you all. I bring you greetings on behalf of Dr. Orville Beckford, Chairman of Council. One of the things that this pandemic has taught us is that the only thing that needs to be changed is everything, and assessment is no exception. We must relax our muscularity in stance long enough to realize that the matter of assessment has to be seen as business unusual. As we engage in active learning and student engagement in unprecedented times, there is need to embrace the digital revolution that is transforming how education is structured. The Council of Community Colleges of Jamaica must of necessity lead the innovation ecosystem that will promote the adoption of technology towards authentic assessment, even as we consider issues of academic integrity and establish evidence requirements. As we begin the 20th anniversary celebrations under the theme CCCJ at 20, expanding the possibilities, it pleases me to report that the Council over these many years has had professional development as one of its #1 organized activities to support faculty. The CCCJ, through the Secretariat, is flexible and responds to the needs of the community. Hence, through this symposium, we are reimagining assessment, be it assessment of learning or assessment for learning. Among our 20th anniversary achievements are that we have had an increase in the number of program offerings. And may I qualify that by saying market-driven programs developed in partnership with industry. The CCCJ has demonstrated growth in the number of member institutions. And importantly, we have significantly strengthened our partnership with the Ministry of Education, Youth and Information, and educational partners across the world. Thank you, Minister, and the dedicated team at the Ministry of Education for enabling the many achievements. In closing, the Council lauds our partnership with the Jamaica Diaspora Taskforce Action Network and will explore the possibilities towards mutually benefiting outcomes. We look forward to this 2-day symposium of academic delight as we explore issues around the scope and context of assessment, the benchmarks for assessment, assessment methods and tools, and how we document assessment procedures for posterity. On behalf of Dr. Orville Beckford, Chairman of Council, I greet you well and wish for you every success over these 2 days. Thank you so much.
And thank you, Dr. Doseth Edwards Watson, for that warm greeting on behalf of our Chairman of Council, Dr. Beckford. I now move to our President of the Association of Principals of and President of Community Colleges, Dr. Maureen Nelson.
Chairperson of the Symposium, Dr. Davia Ramjeet, Honorable Favour Williams, Minister of Education, Youth and Information, Mr. Leo Gillin, Chairman, JDTAN, Dr. Donna Powell-Wilson, Executive Director, Council of Community Colleges of Jamaica, Dr. Dusset Edward Watson, Chairperson, CCCJ Events Management Committee, Dr. Noel Gordon, our keynote speaker, principals, presidents of community colleges and other tertiary institutions, presenters, the members from the CCCJ team, our faculty members, and all the others joining us virtually, a pleasant good morning to everyone. I am indeed honored to bring you greetings on behalf of the Association of Principals, President of Community Colleges of Jamaica, at this most important professional development symposium being held in partnership with the Council of Community Colleges of Jamaica and the Jamaica Diaspora Taskforce Action Network. Undoubtedly, the COVID-19 pandemic has transformed the diverse elements of our lives, including our institutions, the delivery and assessments within our institutions, and how we maneuver the virtual platforms during this period. It is therefore reassuring that this partnership is facilitating this symposium, which will enable us as educators at the tertiary level to reimagine assessment during this pandemic period. Consequently, this initiative is timely and relevant as the education system moves from traditional physical classrooms and face-to-face assessments to greater utilization of the online platform for our assessment. I take this opportunity to laud both Dr. Powell-Wilson and Mr. Gillin, Leo Gillin, who have embraced creativity and found meaningful ways to facilitate this symposium on our 20th anniversary at the Council of Community Colleges of Jamaica. We are indeed extremely happy that provision has been made to provide this professional development for all our educators in our institutions. I want to thank you both very much. We truly appreciate all your efforts, and we look forward to an engaging and stimulating symposium over these 2 days. Ladies and gentlemen, let me also convey warm greetings to the varied stakeholders on this virtual platform and commend everyone who have made this a reality. The Minister of Education, Youth and Information, Minister Favour Williams, our keynote speaker, Dr. Noel Gordon, and the presenters for today, Dr. Jacinth Coleman and Dr. Castreet Harrigan. I want to express profound gratitude to you all, and in particular, our minister and our team at the Ministry of Education as they continue to assist us as principals and presidents to continue to provide outstanding leadership to mitigate the obstacles and meet the objectives of providing education and training for a wide cross-section of our Jamaican population. I also want to thank our keynote speaker, Dr. Gordon, and the presenters as we acknowledge the importance of staff training and professional development to address the demands of this virtual space. This symposium has definitely ensured that there is continued professional development for our faculty members, particularly as we reimagine assessment during this period. As we navigate this COVID-19 crisis, we perceive challenges as opportunities to transform our education system and boldly step into the virtual future of education. With the sustained efforts of all our stakeholders, we will continue to facilitate excellence in tertiary education and positively influence national development. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, our faculty members, all our lecturers, we want to acknowledge your presence here today and view it as an indication of your interest in education and your own personal and professional development. And I want to thank you for participating this morning. I'm sure we will have an engaging, stimulating, and rewarding professional development symposium 2021. I look forward to all the presentations, and I want to thank everyone who have made this a reality. God bless you all. Have a great symposium.
Thank you so much, Dr. Nelson. Indeed, our challenges have become our opportunities. And as we look forward to reimagining assessment, I also use this opportunity to thank all stakeholders for their patience, for their understanding, and for their contribution in this evolution. And as we continue to celebrate our 20th year at CCCJ 20, I invite us all now to share in some of our most viable programs and how we have been treating with the assessments for quality. I now invite our presenter, Mrs. Vanessa Buchanan Williams, who is the current examinations officer, an employee of the Secretariat, CCCJ. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. And again, we want to thank you for being a part of this session. So with the protocols already observed, I am Vanessa Buchanan Williams, the Examination and Assessment Officer. And this morning, I'll be giving you just a brief overview of how the CCCJ has been reimagining assessment. If you would allow me to share my screen. Ms. Clayton James. And while I have it coming up, just to give you a quick overview of the Examination and Assessment Department of the CCCJ. Now, the Examination and Assessment Department of the CCCJ is responsible for providing valid assessment pieces. Now, you will realize that the emphasis is on assessment and not the traditional term being used as examination, because we are no longer, the CCCJ has evolved and we're no longer thinking of assessment as just a sit down, one-shot written paper. We have reimagined assessment and we have been working to ensure that this becomes a reality. Are you able to see my screen?
I can see your screen.
Thank you.
Yes, we are.
Okay. All right, the slide screen will come up in just a moment.
Change it to a slideshow.
I am doing that. Great. Thank you so much. So the Examination and Assessment Department, as I said before, is responsible for valid assessment pieces, and we're responsible for this for all the courses that are offered under the CCCJ umbrella. So we're looking at some 230 examination or assessment pieces being produced each semester over approximately 13 institutions. Now, some of our quality assurance mechanisms, we stand proudly after 20 years to defend our upgraded or robust quality assurance mechanism, which has been influenced by best practices and is embedded in our ISO 9001:2015 quality management standard. Some of these include the training that we offer for our faculty members, As assessment change, we also have to prepare our faculty members to meet these demands, and also to prepare our students to be prepared or to be ready for this format of assessment. We conduct our professional development workshops. As we can see, this is one such. We do our different trainings, whether it is on a one-on-one basis or we do a general training for all our faculty. And of course, the professional development is not just about assessment, but we take into consideration the holistic part of our faculty members. We have a robust team and a very qualified team of external examiners, and these members, this pool, they play a very vital role in the validity of our items. They will be used, or they will be engaged from the start of the assessment even to the end of the assessment process. And so they will be validating our assessment items, and they will be also moderating our sample scripts and providing these reports, which are very important for our UCJ accreditation. This is done via institutions, and the CCCJ plays a very important part in ensuring that our institutions are ready for the accreditation process. And so before COVID, we realized that COVID has affected everyone, and the examination department is no different. So before COVID, we would have been looking at how to enhance our printing and packaging and ensuring that the assessment would have got to the institutions on time. Now, dealing with COVID, we are on the online platform. And just to segue a bit to show how we have had to maneuver ourselves, we are presently in an examination session. We're presently running our semester examination, and this is being done online. And of course, has given us the freedom to be able to maneuver ourselves in the online space. So at 20 years, after 20 years, we would have expected some amount of growth. So the CCCJ would have started out in 2001 with 8 programs. And today we look at minimum 32 programs. And I say minimum because our Minister of Education pointed out just now that the CCCJ will be playing a role in the 6th form program. And of course, after this, we'll see an increase in the number of programs that we are now offering, and as well as the number of institutions that we will be governing.
The future is not a fixed point. It is ours to create.
Now, I'm taking us down memory lane. In 2019, I'm not sure how many persons on here would have remembered the conference 2019. CCCJ's presentation for assessment spoke about Education 4.0, where we looked at the change to education and we looked at the thrust for the 4th industrial revolution. Did we see this happening 2 years or a few months after? No, we didn't. But then came a pandemic, which is one of the driving factors to the change in this education sector. And so the CCCJ had to respond. So we reimagined what the education landscape would have been. We reimagined the education landscape looking at robotics. Initially, we were looking at robotics and how is it we would be getting our students to learn anywhere, anytime. We're looking at hands-on learning. We were looking at all of this in 2019. Here we are in 2021 and starting from 2020, where all of this became a reality without us even realizing. We were thrust in this, and as such, we had to respond. So having the idea from 2019 that there's going to be a change in the education sector, how are we going to respond to this? We started reimagining from this time. And so it was not a major challenge, but yes, a challenging one when we had to make some changes during this pandemic. So during our pandemic, we looked at suitable assessment pieces. Now, we had some trial and errors. We're still ensuring that we are fixing it. We're still ensuring that we work through the kinks because we're not out of it. We're still learning as we go. And our suitable assessment, we looked at, as Bode in 2000 indicated, that these are pieces that will meet the needs of the present without compromising the ability of students to meet their own future learning. And so we are reimagining assessment, not just where students regurgitate information and repeat it, place it on the paper, but that they are given situations where they are able to give you from the situation, how did they arrive at this solution? And so one of the things we looked at, we did continuous assessment during the pandemic, where students would have been assessed as they were going, as learning was taking place. Now, of course, to ensure that we had our quality assurance mechanisms in place, we had to put a lot of documentations together. And of course, it was also retraining to ensure that we were all on the same page. Then, of course, we did our assessment, we did our evaluation of that process and moved right into another phase where we looked at case study analysis. And just to give an idea, this was where the students would have been given real life situations and they would have come up with their problems. This was allowing the students to present their own findings, their own learning. Now, in creating this change, it did not come without challenges, and we're still working through these. It required the retraining of our faculty to prepare the students and themselves for this alternative form of assessment. We also look at ensuring that all forms of assessment, not just the ones that were standardized, would have met the same quality assurance mechanisms. And we also have been working on ensuring that the virtual space that is now being used, heavily used, still adheres to the quality mechanisms that we have in place. Has it been easy? No, it has not, but we're committed to the task and we are working through this. So how can we achieve this change, this education 4.0, this new thrust, reimagining assessment? Well, we are realizing that there is a lot of effort being placed on the virtual classroom, ensuring that resources are spent on creating this space that students can learn anywhere, anytime. We also will require a balanced approach to ensuring that these students being facilitated in this future classroom are also assessed accordingly. And so this will require continuous professional development for our faculty, reimagining what assessment will look like, reimagining the new future, the new generation. What we can say is what we knew as assessment and the future generation, that has changed. We don't know what the future will look like, but we are assured that education and how we assess the students will help to form this. We really need to rethink our assessment, because unless we do so, we will continue to educate the followers of yesterday rather than the leaders of tomorrow. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for listening and thank you so much for being a part of this session.
And thank you, Mrs. Buchanan Williams. Well said. I know, ladies and gentlemen, that we are a little bit pressed for time, and we would love for you to join our plenary sessions after our keynote speaker. So I crave your indulgence and patience as we invite our Executive Director, Dr. Paul Wilson, to introduce to you the keynote speaker. Please, again, feel welcomed to have a conversation with Dr. Pearl Wilson moderating during or after the presentation. We are always hopeful that we are not only listening, but engaging in some way or the other with what is being shared. Dr. Pearl Wilson, I invite you now.
Thank you very much, Dr. Ramjeet. I trust that you're hearing and you're seeing me as well. Is that so?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. This morning we have with us Dr. Noel Gordon. He is a Jamaican. He started his education at Watttown Primary School. He then went to Homewood Technical High, Jamaica School of Agriculture, and the University of the West Indies. At the University of the West Indies, Mona, he earned his bachelor degree with honors in agronomy, plant and soil science. Shortly after, Dr. Gordon migrated to the United States of America, and he continued his education journey at Mount Clair State University and the Nova Southeastern University in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, where he earned his doctoral degree in educational leadership. Dr. Gordon comes to us with a wealth of knowledge in educational leadership, online teaching and learning, and assessment. He is one of the foundation for the establishment of the Department of Curriculum and Instruction in high schools at the New Jersey public school system. Dr. Gordon has served on advisory boards for community colleges in New Jersey. He has been a member of the Career Technical Educational Advisory Board for the New Jersey Department of Education. He is married to Carmen and they have 2 children, Jodine and Noel Jr. And we are waiting to hear from one of our own, Dr. Noel Gordon. So ladies and gentlemen, please welcome, use your emoji, welcome Dr. Gordon as he shares with us on reimagining assessments. Over to you, Dr. Gordon.
Thank you so very kindly. That was very generous of you. Just a quick correction. I assisted in the reestablishment of the Department of Curriculum and Instruction for the Inglewood Public School District here in New Jersey. I'd like to use the opportunity to greet and to commend the Council of Community Colleges of Jamaica, particularly our president, Dr. Powell Wilson, who kept in touch with me and kept me apprised of the steps in making sure that this process went okay. Also, the Jamaica Diaspora Taskforce Action Network chairperson, Leo Gillens, who made this possible. And I think we still have the Honorable Favour Williams. If she's there, we'd like to greet you also. This is a symposium for reimagining assessment, and all protocol is observed. And in the interest of time, I'll just go straight to the presentation. I'm so excited to be with you, and I'll take you on this journey. Can you see my screen?
Yes, we are.
Okay,
Yes, we
you
can.
see my screen. So today I'd like to talk to us on reimagining assessment, as your theme says, and there's a particular topic that I'd like to address, and that is rethinking assessment practices. Assessment is very important. Assessment is an invaluable component of teaching and learning. It creates opportunities to demonstrate learning. It identifies students' strengths and challenges, and it provides credible data for progress monitoring. Let's commence by doing some reflection. University of Kentucky professor Thomas Guskey questioned the practice of giving students only one opportunity to show what they had learned. As educators, we sometimes assess students the same way we were assessed as students, without stopping to think about why we do what we do, or whether it is the best way to determine if students are truly learning what we want them to learn. In addition to questioning the practice of only allowing students one chance on an assessment, there are other approaches which educators follow without thinking about the impact on students. Why do we average grades instead of concentrating on what students have learned? Why do we give partial credits when students take the time to make corrections and resubmit the work? Why do we create assessments that require students to guess what's on the teacher's mind? And why do we continue to do the same thing again and again when it is clear that students are not successful and learning is not occurring? As we reflect on assessment, let us take a look at several suggestions as we rethink assessment practices. And let me just go to this forward to the next slide and take us there as soon as possible. So, all right. So we emphasize grades instead of emphasizing learning for our students. Now, we should not lose sight of student learning as the ultimate goal. We can become so wrapped up in grading practices that the focus is on the grade and not on student learning. I have encountered students who received a C or a D on the report card when they had earned an A or a B on the summative unit assessment. Sometimes parents would come to us and said, why is the final grade a D or a C when the student obtained a very good grade on the summative assessment? In the teacher's lists of grades, the student has missed 2 homework assignments, 1 journal entry, and maybe received an F on a pop quiz. The teacher's grading practice allotted a certain percentage to each portion of the items in the grade book. In short, the teacher followed the practice of averaging grades instead of focusing on what the student ultimately learned. Averaging grades is often in conflict with student learning, and yet we accept the practice without questioning why we do it. We are grading compliance instead of assessing mastery in the content. I remember some time ago, we tried to institute no grading policy for homework assignments. Of course, we didn't get the kind of a response we were expecting to get from our teachers because they felt that we need to grade the homework assignment. But research showed that when students do their assignments or homework assignments freely and understanding that the assignment is really to check for learning and to reinforce what they learned in the classroom, then they had a better attitude towards their assignment. So we need to give students multiple opportunities to show what they have learned. We have to give them multiple opportunities to show what they have learned. Assessment should not be a one-shot, do or die undertaking for our students. We should apply the same common sense in assessing students' learning as we do to teaching a loved one or colleague something new. When we teach someone to drive, we don't just continue to tell him or her that you're failed, you have a bad grade. We give continuous feedback and we allow that person to try again and again. I remember when I was learning to drive, I would make the same mistakes over and over, but my driving coach would be very patient with me and we would do it over and over again until I perfect it. If we teach a colleague a new technology application, we sit with them and answer their questions until we see that they can use the skill independently. Think about the smartphone. When you get the smartphone and you go to your child or your grandchild and you ask that child to assist you in navigating the apps, and you call that child again tomorrow and the next day and the following day. And sometimes that child would say, I told you already, but we kept going back. And we kept going back until we grasped the concept. As learners ourselves, nothing is more frustrating than having a knowledgeable individual present us with information and then leaves us floundering as we struggle to figure out new learning on our own. We should use the learning principles with our students that we want for ourselves when we are undertaking new learning. One principal established the practice in her school, which is called A, B, C, or do it over. A, B, C, or do it over. Students were expected to work until they had earned a minimum of a grade of C. The emphasis was on teaching students to persevere until they had achieved some reasonable degree of mastery. How about eliminating zeros? Now, there is no practice in education that discourages students more than the practice of giving zeros for an incomplete assignment or an assignment that is not turned in. When a teacher gives a 0, it is the expectation that the grade will be a wake-up call for the student, who will then be motivated to improve in his or her performance. This practice often has the opposite effect. typically a student will shut down and stop working because he or she knows that it is impossible to rebound from a zero. In certain situations, teachers follow the unfortunate practice of assigning zero as a punishment to students. And let me reiterate, assessment is not a punitive measure. It is a measure or a strategy to check for learning. This is really a misuse of the teacher's authority. I'm not sure where this idea of zeros came from, but it is a practice that is counter to our goal of motivating students to learn and to have students be active participants in the educational process. One principal who felt that the practice was unfair to students conducted a faculty meeting session in which the staff members discussed alternatives to assigning zeros. The principal collected the data from the discussions, and more productive alternatives were shared with the entire staff. Would it be amazing if we form focus groups designed to overhaul the assessment practices? Now, aligning assessment with the learning standards, that's another piece I'd like to talk about. Have you ever done an exam, and when you get into the exam, you realize that what was taught was not represented in the exam? I remember when we were in college years ago, we had a professor who was noted for that, and we walked out of the class. That wasn't the right thing to do, but we looked at these questions. We didn't know how to answer them. So we went to the administration of the college and we said, like, listen, the assessment is not aligned with the learning standards. And we redid, they gave us the opportunity to redo the exam. And this professor gave 10 of us the score of 46, which is just the bare minimum those days in passing an exam. So that was really a punitive memory. It is critical that assessment be aligned with the standards that are taught. Be upfront with students about learning, upfront with them what is expected to be learned. The guideline for us should be to take the mystery out of the mastery. Take the mystery out of the mastery. We did a walk out in college, and that was a very good thing. And I'm glad we did, because we set a precedence, and the students who came after us, they were assessed differently. As Paula Rutherford writes, educators should follow the 3 Ps in relation to assessment. And here are the 3 Ps. There are the 3 Ps. Prior to giving assessment, okay, prior to giving an assessment to students, the teacher should be public about how students will be assessed, as well as telling the students precisely how learning will be measured. All of us are better able to work towards achieving a goal when we know what the goal is. As the master's level, at the master's level, we were told precisely what we'd be testing on, and it did make the exam less rigorous. For me in particular, at my college level, when I did the master's program, every time we went into the professor, this is what you're going to be tested on. And also we would be given open book tests. They would tell us exactly what would be in the exam. And there were times they gave us, they said, use your notes. What we had to do then, we had to engage our critical thinking skills. And we were very excited thinking we know the questions and we have the notes. So we thought it would be an easier exam. It turned out to be much more difficult because we were forced to go into the notes. We were forced to apply what we actually learned. So just setting a test and not aligning it with the learning standards is not a very good thing to do. And we should revisit that and make sure that that is not done. Okay, the other thing I'd like to talk about is to build student confidence. Many students who attend community colleges are students who might have had some challenging experiences at the high school level, and it also might be their second attempt to gain an education, especially in these times of challenges. Mindfulness has to come into play. We have to find a way of building the students' confidence. We have to make sure that we encourage them, because this might be the only opportunity to move forward with their education. So The research on learning is perfectly clear. When the teachers use assessments accurately and appropriately, student success will follow. When students experience success on a regular basis, they develop confidence and they build optimism. They develop a strong desire to succeed, to learn, to analyze their mistakes. They put forth a high level of effort, and they take risk as they stretch themselves as learners. One of my former superintendents, one of my mentors, he said that make sure that when your students enter your class, they experience success. The first thing that they should experience is success, because if at first it's a negative experience, then that would be something that goes downstream after that. So the other thing is that on the repeated failures result in pessimism, a sense of hopelessness, decreasing effort and expectations that will get the student to the point that they believe that they'll never be successful. Teachers have the power to build student confidence through the way they plan lessons, the types of assessment they utilize, and the teacher has the power to build student confidence through the way they plan lessons on the type of assessment that they administer. By completing an analysis of the assessment and the assessments that the teachers expect the students to complete, and by differentiating instruction to ensure that all students can accomplish the work that is being assigned, a teacher can do a great deal to instill the I can do it attitude in the student. Retention capacity, listen me carefully, retention capacity is greatly enhanced when assessment is student-centered. Earlier, I mentioned that the emphasis should be on learning instead of grading. So we should really offer choices to our students. When students have some ownership of their learning, when they have some ownership of their learning, they become more engaged and interested in participating in the learning experience. Allow them to choose related projects to demonstrate mastery, and also allow them to participate in developing the assessment rubric. And that is definitely in order to do. Have them share with you, what do I want to learn from this? Or what will be the outcome? What will be my outcome? What's the expected outcome? You may want one thing, the student may want to learn something else. You come together, you say, hey, these are my expectations. And then the students will say, this is what I want to present to you. Let them be a part of the process. By allowing students some choice in how they learn. I want to do this research. I want to read this book. I want to do this project. I want to do some free writing. I want to do some webbing. They become more intrinsically motivated. And I coined a phrase which I'd like to share with you, and I'd like for you to really take note of this. It says that academic self-concept and learning expectations are incubated and nurtured in a culture of guided self-directedness and intrinsic motivation. So basically, we have to put it on the students. I'm a constructivist. I believe that the knowledge is inherent in the student, and our responsibility is to bring this knowledge out of them. It's not a funnel. Back in the day, we pour the knowledge into their heads. Now they have it. We have to unearth it, and it lends credibility to our craft, and it also builds the academic self-esteem. When a teacher allows students on occasion to choose how to demonstrate the learning, the essential understandings become more personal and long-lasting. So let's talk a little bit about data. Formative assessment. Formative assessments refer to a wide array of methods that teachers use to conduct in-process evaluations of student comprehension, student learning. The result of formative assessment are often used to determine student final grade. But can I challenge us, and I maybe some of you are already doing this, the pop quiz and the homework assignments and the projects, all of these things are measures that give us an indication of how the student is performing. So the formative assessment really should not carry the bulk of the grade for the student. we do the formative assessment so that we can give informed instruction. Now, we need to make sure that we move towards focusing most of our grades on the summative assessment. So the student might have done very poorly on a homework assignment, may not have turned in a homework, may have done very poorly on a test, but the student sat in the class and the student listened, and the student was very, very, very intent on listening, and the scores came out and the student got an A on the test. But because the student did so poorly, or the student misbehaved in the class, whatever the factor might be, we end up giving the student a C. Let's place our focus on the summative assessment instead of the formative assessment. And we need to expand our assessment repertoire. I know that I'm moving because I have 20 minutes and I have like 2 minutes to go, so just bear with me. We should do whatever it takes to promote and measure student learning. Educators should be lifelong learners who are constantly adding to their instructional approaches, as well as ways to assess student learning. Administrators must create opportunities for teachers to routinely collaborate with their peers and exchange assessment ideas. And teachers must continuously seek out new strategies and approaches in assessing students. In short, we should be searching for the keys to student success. We should be searching for the keys to student success. Our ultimate goal as educators is to have our students learn to self-assess by reflecting on their own efforts in learning and then self-adjust, you know. We want our students to think of assessment and adjustment of behaviors as practices, not only as steps in the learning process, but as essential life skills, skills that they will apply to their lives in the future. And we can promote this mindset by carefully structuring the learning environment for our students so that they will take charge of their education. And one last thing I'd like to mention is we should remember the person behind the numbers. Remember the person behind the numbers. Despite the large number of students we work with every day, we must always remember that a student cannot be reduced to a number or a grade. I remember when I attended the University of the West Indies, back in those days, they used to post the grades on the board in the admin building, and you would have a number. And I remember I was so paranoid. I was so paranoid that everyone would get their scores. I can't find mine. I can't find mine. They don't know my number, so they can help me out. And it would take me a long while to get, because, you know, I was so scared because I was just a number. But despite the large number of students we work with for every day, we must always remember that a student cannot be reduced to a number or a grade. The more personal interests we take in each of our students, the greater the likelihood that the student will become more involved in learning. As human beings, we all want to experience success. We have feelings and we have aspirations. Our students are no different. When frustrated, they often resort to acting defensive or seemingly uninterested. And when we focus on the person behind the numbers in the grade book, we may discover that ingredient that will turn each student into a learner. So I hope that I've said something that will inspire someone. And I'd just like to say in closing that as we approach the new school year, and I know for us, our students are coming back to school tomorrow. They have all kinds of circumstances. We have traumatic situations that they're dealing with. They have all kinds of uncertainties. Let's be mindful. We have to make sure we include mindfulness in whatever we do. Let's not focus on the grades. Let's focus on the learning. I hope that we have gleaned something from my presentation today. Thank you very kindly, everybody.
Thank you so much, Dr. Gordon. I'm going to ask that Dr. Paul Wilson moderates the question and answer section. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Ramjeet, and thank you for a very informative, inspiring presentation, Dr. Gordon. And to our viewers on our YouTube channel and our other social media channels, we ask that you share, type your questions and we'll take them here. So there are 2 questions so far, Dr. Gordon, and I'm smiling at one, trusting that you'll be able to guide us in this one. So this one comes from Miss Rob on YouTube. How do you allow students to have choice in assessments when the examining body has a policy of common courseworks developed before you even meet the students? And I'll say that's pointing directly at us. And we want to change. So we do have a policy, and I think my exam officer is on, where for the coursework, there is one piece that is standardized. So all the students will do that coursework piece within a particular period. So I think what I'm hearing from Ms. Rob is, if based on your presentation, if we are to allow students to have a choice in the assessment, how is that possible when we have this standardized assessment?
Okay, I oftentimes heard, I've heard these questions too, because I served in my school district at one point in time as director of testing and evaluation. And we oftentimes hear drill and kill, teach the test. Okay, I think that the standards, if we teach, not necessarily teach the test, but teach the standards, then I believe that if this teacher collaborates with the student, okay, I'm saying collaboration now, collaborates with the student and have the students make choices in terms of what kind of projects they'd like to engage in to demonstrate. Remember, we're talking about testing now, to demonstrate mastery of the subject. In other words, I assessed a teacher some time ago. I evaluated a teacher, and it was a math class. The teacher had to stick to the standards. But what was involved, the teacher had groceries for each student. And the teacher said, I'm giving you $50 or $80, and you're supposed to now go to the store, and you're supposed to purchase within your budget, and you have to come back without being in the negative. I observed the teacher, those students took charge of their learning, and they purchased the products, the actual products in the classroom, and they added the taxes. And at the end of the day, all of these students, it was an alternative program also, students who were supposed to be troublesome students. It was a very, very wonderful class. And the behavior was great. The students were involved. Student engagement was powerful. But because the students were involved in the assessment process, not in terms of the instructional delivery, but in terms of how they're going to demonstrate learning. This is the level of creativity we are talking about, because at the end of the day, we know we have to assess teachers. We know you're going to be assessed based on the test scores. But when you shut that door, you have to come up with creative ways of ensuring, of securing how students can demonstrate mastery. I hope I've answered somewhat that question.
Gordon, and I'll ask, thank you, Dr. Gordon, and I'll ask our examination officer, Mrs. Buchanan Williams, to provide additional clarity on the matter. Mrs. Buchanan Williams?
Thank you, Dr. Paul Wilson. And since that question seems to be aimed a little at us based on our processes or what we have in place, just to point out that a common coursework that is standardized is only one piece. The lecturer has the autonomy to put in place or to work with the student to provide other forms of assessment. And so it's just one piece that we use for our standardized mechanism so that we can have our reporting, and on our end, we require data to be able to move forward to do what we need to do. And this is one method that we use. But we have not ruled out, we have not taken away the autonomy of the lecturer to work with the students and to provide other assessment pieces. Thank you, Dr. Paul Wilson.
Thank you, Mrs. Buchanan Williams. There is a question from Avery Thompson. It seems to be a follow-up on another question. I'm trying to find that. I think she was, I think Avery was following up on, but it says, what happens if the opposite occurs? It says the opposite I'm trying to find. What happens if the opposite occurs? Oh, that is, if the student does well during the course, but falls short on the summative, what is the recourse then? I think that's for you, Dr. Gordon. What if the student does well on during the course, but falls short on the summative part of the assessment? What is the recourse?
Okay, I do think that we have to, and this one will be a little crude, we have to evaluate the teaching and learning process. Okay, we have had students who have gained A's and B's in formative assessments, and even in the classroom assignments. When they did the standardized tests, they did very poorly. Then something is that is a judgment on us as the educator, because if we're giving them A's and then when they do the final summative, they get a D, that means we need some professional development. And we also put a little on the student. We have to teach them test-taking skills, because it could be social promotion. We have had that situation where students get all A's and B's, and when they do the standardized test, they fail. Something is missing in the teaching and learning process. It's a crude response, but that's a fact.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Gordon. Another question from Sandra Kalu. Do you encourage ongoing assessment for mastery of skill learning or mastery of skill learn? Do you encourage assessment for mastery of skill?
I'm not sure if I fully understand the question, but yes, assessment, I encourage assessment. You should always check for learning, because you can't just give one assignment. There are a couple of educators, you give 2 assignments for the entire semester. How do you know where the student is? So yes, you should give continuous assessment, but I would dare say that do not assign a grade to all of these assessments. The student doesn't even have to know how many of the assignments you're going to use towards the final grade. But yes, you should continuously administer assessments and make sure you review them. And the worst thing you could do is to take in the assignments and you don't provide the student with feedback.
Okay, thank you, sir. What will we assess? This question is from Grace Barnes. What will we assess if compliance in submission of assignments is not treated with rigor?
It should be treated with rigor. Treating with rigor is not synonymous to assigning a high score. Okay, you can challenge your students, so it's not synonymous at all. And that's one of the responses we got when we tried to move away from that aspect in our school district. They said, hey, if we don't assign a grade to that, then they won't take it seriously. But have a conversation with them. Maybe sometimes we have to appeal to the cognition. Guys, the reason I'm doing this is not to catch you, is so that you can understand and have better understanding of the test. Sometimes if we say to them, if you do this assignment, I can almost guarantee you a good score on the summative, more than likely they're rational enough to do that.
Thank you, sir. Recognizing Dr. Ramjeet's hand.
Hi, Dr. Gordon.
Hello.
Fantastic presentation, by the way.
Thank you.
You touched on some points, and I'm happy that you're a Jamaican, and so that you can identify with some of our cultural issues and how we treat with being very penal. And I can't help but to put together your presentation with just change management and change initiative, because I think what we are separating is our culture. For example, I know of a tertiary institution that still uses the bell curve pedagogy. How do you then feel about a cultural shift before treating with even content and assessment strategies, etc.? how do we then address the issues of culture to prepare the classroom environment? Did you get my question?
I think I got it. I think I got it. I got some goose pimples when you asked a question, if I got you right, because you remember, I don't know if it happened in your days, but I remember back in my days when I went to college in Jamaica, maybe University of West Indies. I studied in Trinidad. And the professor would come into the classroom and he said, look around you. You have 200 students sitting here. By the time the semester is over, we're going to have 80 left. To me now, that's emotional, that's institutional abuse. Okay, and then you'd have, I remember a teacher saying that no one can get an A in my class. How do you determine? That's not the way. It's not a punitive measure. It doesn't make you a great teacher if no one in your class gets an A. And it doesn't make you a great teacher if most of your students fail the test either. It's a judgment on you. So basically, we have to sit down and listen. You have to have the hard, tough conversation. I'm from a family of educators. Most of my family are educators. And sometimes I butt heads with my nieces because, but Uncle Noel, you know, these kids don't learn anything, whatever case might be. Listen, here's what we have to do. We have to move towards what I call the effort paradigm. The ability paradigm says, listen, either you got it or you don't, you got it, goodness. Either you have it or you don't have it. That's the ability paradigm. You know, these students are bright and these students are dumb. The effort paradigm, if we espouse the effort paradigm in reculturing education and saying that all students have the ability to learn, and we go in with that positive attitude because students rise to the level of our expectation. It should be our goal as an educator, and that's what we are paid for, is to help students to learn. So I hope what I've said answer your question. Reculturing is that we have to change our mentality. Yes. Grading is not a punitive measure. You can't give a student, if a student gets an A in a test and the student was the most horrible student in your class, you can't say, you wait, man, I can't wait to give the final grade. I'm going to give him a C. You say, these things happen. No, you got to separate that, deal with the behavior, but assess the mastery.
Thank you very much, Dr. Gordon. And that's why we're having this conference, Reimagining Assessment. We want to look at what we have done, look at where we're going. How can we help our students? I'm seeing in the chat, when you mentioned, when you responded to Dr. Ramjit about the bell curve, persons are saying it is still happening, where some students must fail even before they start the course. So we want our faculty in our member institutions to help us to reimagine assessment. And certainly here at the Secretariat, we are committed to ensure that all our students have their reasonable share. They are given the opportunity to excel in education. So we plan to set the priority. What is it we're going to assess? Publicize what is it we're going to assess. And I'm not remembering the other piece, sir.
Sorry, I didn't quite get you.
Oh, that's all right. So Dr. Gordon, based on the comments we have seen on our social media platform, a very interesting, invigorating presentation. We thank you very much for the presentation. And there is a comment from Sharon Seymour that you should write a book on reculturing education assessments.
I'll write that down.
On reculturing education assessment, and we need that book like yesterday, because we really have to rethink what is it we do in assessment. So thank you very much, Dr. Gordon.
Thank you.
And we look forward to the continued relationship with you. Thanks to our audience for sharing in this session, in the keynote, your questions, comments, we value them, and certainly we will be looking at them to see how we can improve on assessment. Thank you much. Over to you, Dr. Ramjeet.
I echoed those similar sentiments. Dr. Paul Wilson, I recall during your prayer, you asked for internet stability, and we're enough, and we need another prayer before we go into our plenary sessions. But before I invite Mrs. Cherie Heaven Able to do the proper thank you, I am just going to challenge our colleagues in academia right now. Someone mentioned that Dr. Gordon needs to write a book. I am challenging us all in academia to extend the body of research on assessments and relate it to our culture. Enough of us are able to write articles, and I'm asking for this paradigm to be shifted by virtue of us who are practitioners. We have a voice, and as the sitting chairman for the exams and assessment unit of the CCCJ Council, I think it is within our reach to make that shift. And I hope that we can again invite Mr. Gordon in another session where the members of that committee can be trained or retooled in examinations and assessments to include also our examination coordinators. Now, I am very hopeful that when we start that conversation in a very meaningful way, that persons will not resist the change because of our positionalities and our personalities and where we're coming from. Because what I can see in the chat rooms is that we are not for it. And so if it is that we are purporting no, that there needs to be a change and the paradigm needs to be shifted, it starts with every individual in this room and in academia. Now, with that said, I invite Mrs. Heaven Able to give the vote of thanks.
Our most valued guests, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. On behalf of the Council of Community Colleges of Jamaica, we extend a heartfelt thank you to all speakers, those who have already presented and those to come, for sharing your well wishes, research, findings, and guided opinions with us. A big thank you to our Honorable Minister Favour Williams for taking the time out to bring us greetings. You have set the pace for us as we delve into activities as we commemorate 20 years of service to the education system in Jamaica. Thank you for reminding us of the importance of what we do and for encouraging us to continue our drive for innovation as we respond to today's challenges with creativity and technology. We are committed to working with the Ministry of Education, Youth and Information as we strive to advance education in Jamaica. We offer our deep sense of appreciation to Mr. Leo Gilling and the Jamaica Diaspora Taskforce Action Network for their contribution to education, not only in Jamaica and the diaspora, but also for their support given to the CCCJ as we planned this symposium. To Drs. Edwards Watson and Nelson, thank you for your kind words, greetings, and continued support as we continue to reimagine assessment for all our member institutions. To our keynote speaker, Dr. Noel Gordon, your suggestions for rethinking assessment practices, from creating pathways for students to demonstrate learning, to ensuring that we do whatever it takes to promote and measure learning, have paved the way for bigger ideas and reimagining, and will guide us on our journey for advancing education. Thank you for taking the time out of your busy schedule to share with us such a valuable message.
At the Secretariat, we have been blessed with a team of very motivated and dedicated colleagues who know their job and are results-oriented. Without them, this session today would not have been a success. We also thank the participants present today on our social media pages. Without you, there would be no need for a symposium of this magnitude. Finally, thank you to members of the Events Management Committee for envisioning and planning this remarkable event. It has been said that we value what we measure. That is why next generation learning, which values a broader, richer set of cognitive, social, and emotional skills and dispositions, requires new strategies for measurement. Educators taking on the challenge of reimagining assessment are creating assessment approaches that support more equitable, personalized, and competency-based learning environments. Let us continue to work together to create comfortable and inclusive environments that will encourage learning and garner success. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Abel. I will now hand over to Dr. Powell Wilson, who will coordinate moderators. For the information of those who may not know, our moderator for the first session is Miss Ava or Avia Gale of Brownstown Community College. And for the final session of the day, it will be Mr. Paul Cox of Excelsior Community College. I invite you to remain on our respective platforms in these sessions so that you can gain from it in a very meaningful way. Over to you now, Dr. Paul Wilson.
Thank you very much, Dr. Ramjeet. And colleagues, we are a little behind, so I'm going to crave your indulgence as we go forward. I'm going to ask us to take just 2 minutes to stretch. So we want to start the next session at 10:45, and that session will be done by Dr. Jacinth Coltsman. Miss Clayton James, can you share the agenda, not the agenda, the program for us, please? So 2 minutes to stretch, and then at 10:45, we will start with Dr. Coltsman. Okay, so we are back. Thank you. I trust you are refreshed, energized, re-energized, and ready to go. So at this time, I'll invite Miss Avia Gale to take over from here. Over to you, Avia.
Good morning. I'm here to introduce Dr. Jacinth M. Coltman. Dr. Coltman is the Vice President for Academic Technology and General Education at Monroe College in New York, where she has served students for more than 25 years. A dedicated and innovative educator with a passion for developing, designing, and implementing academic technology, she led the college's transition to the virtual classrooms at the onset of the pandemic and its continual efforts to identify and resolve technology gaps that challenge student success, whether they are learning at home or on campus. The words "no child or adult left behind" now have a new meaning as it rings through on a daily basis. Dr. Coltman holds a PhD in education with a specialization in educational technology from Walden University and an MS in Management Information Systems from Pace University. She hails from the small village of Stairtown, St. Anne, Jamaica, and is elated to be partnering with CCCJ and JDTAN in giving back to her island home. Dr. Coltman, over to you.
Good morning, everyone. It is such a pleasure to be with you today. I thank you to, of course, Dr. Powell Wilson. She always seems to know how to get me to do exactly what she wants me to do, which is to once again join all of the members of the CCCJ in your symposium. So I do thank you, Dr. Powell Wilson, for this auspicious occasion and opportunity. So as I've sat and listened to all of the speakers prior to now this plenary session, I really do appreciate the fact that you are reimagining assessment and just really rethinking how to do things. If there's one thing that the pandemic has taught us is that we must be prepared and we must be ready to shift. So please allow me to share my screen and my presentation. So, my presentation today is on innovative assessment techniques in the online environment. What is it that we want to know about assessment, and how can we make it marketable and appropriate for our students? If you think about assessment, think about it this way. Assessment is today's means of modifying tomorrow's instructions. As I listened to our keynote speaker, I thought about, yes, my own experience in taking various exams at that time and wanting that A. There is no student that does not want that A. We all want that A. That's exactly what we're looking to get. And those are the things that we want to see. We want to see at the end that A. However, in today's market, in today's environment, we really have to shift our thinking. We have to shift and modify on a continuous basis. So it is a daily occurrence. It is really not something that we're just going to put in place and stop. It's really a way of modifying tomorrow's instruction. And this is going to continue to go on and on and on. So what is assessment? Really, if you think about it, you're asking one question. Did the student learn what the instructor or the course intended for them to learn? So at the end, it's hey, what did you learn and can you prove it to me? However, getting to that answer does not always have to be the same. It does not always have to be that dreaded test or that dreaded exam. We really have to rethink, what is it we want our students to know? What is it we want our students to be able to do? So the first bullet says, have we developed efficient strategies and methods for integrating multiple types of assessments where our students will be afforded the opportunity to evaluate their own performance? Did the students learn what the instructor or the course intended for them to learn? But now we're shifting it a little to say, were the students given the opportunity to really evaluate their own performance and thus can say, yes, I have learned what you intended or what the course intended for us to learn. So for those of you who are not familiar with the Online Learning Consortium, it is a group of colleges and universities that come together to really look at best practices in the online environment. So when we talk about assessment, once again, it is ongoing. It is an ongoing platform to ensure that we are actually doing the right thing and at the right time. So when we ask that question, as we go through today's presentation, I really want you to keep that in mind. Multiple types of assessments where students will be afforded the opportunity to evaluate their own performance. Now let's think. I heard this in Dr. Gordon's presentation as well. Should students be given the opportunity to maximize their capacity? Should the assessment be designed to achieve optimal results, not from the instructor's standpoint, but from a student learning perspective? Rather than simply saying, it's a high stakes exam, I need you to pass this final exam, I need you to pass the Regents exam, the SAT, the GRE, any of the other capstone projects or assessments that we currently have in place. How are we now bringing the students into that mix? Rather than just say, here is the test, you need to pass the test. And finally, are we measuring really what matters? What are the items, what are the things that we are actually measuring? So I trust that you, as we go through this journey together, will be able to answer some of these questions or even come to a point where we want to reimagine that assessment. So why are we assessing? Why assess? There are two types that we really want to focus on today. We want to talk about assessment for learning, which is formative, and the assessment of learning, which is summative. So assessment for learning and assessment of learning. When we compare the assessment of for learning to the assessment of learning, we really want to touch on a few items. So in Dr. Gordon's presentation, he really talked about formative assessments and given quizzes and things of that sort, but let's take it a bit further. In assessment for learning, which is the formative assessment, we really give both the faculty and the student the opportunity to do a self-reflection. Those quizzes, those homework assignments, it gives us checks and balances. So we're checking the learning at different standpoints. It could be every week. It could be multiple times during a classroom session, but it's designed to assess the educator and the students in the improvement of that learning. Not just to say, I read the chapter, I did the homework, I took the quiz, and I got 100. What does that mean? Can you then turn that and be able to say, I truly understood what was being taught? It is used for continual feedback, descriptive feedback. As a matter of fact, one of the things that we do at Monroe with our online courses is we actually implement a formative assessment after each week. And what we do is we allow the students to tell us, give me 2 things that you learned this week that were vital, not just to your course, but to your life. How are you going to use these things in the future? We are preparing tomorrow's educators, tomorrow's workforce. How are we preparing them? And are we giving them the opportunity to see that it is now vital for them in the real world? So with those, with the ability for them to now self-assess, tell me, what is it that I can do to improve? Or what was in this week's lesson that I can now improve in next week? This gives now also the instructor the ability to tailor the lesson plan, to tailor the activities in ensuring that the students are getting all of the tools necessary for learning. So while we may give quizzes, discussions, whatever it happens to be, remember we are focusing on improvement. How can I do a reflection? How can I involve the student in ensuring that they have the best means possible for this assessment? When we look at the next, if you look on the right, where we talk about assessment of learning, the summative assessment. What have we learned to date? It's designed now to give us a type of information where the students will be able to say, hey, I got my A. And as I was explaining to Dr. Powell Wilson, is that a lot of our students, now Monroe College, we have a lot of international students as well as, students from the metropolitan area. We are located in New York City. We have a campus also on the island of St. Lucia. But at Monroe, when we really do our assessments, or when we think about summative assessment, yes, we have departmental final exams. We have exams that are based on certification, so they're mandated by that certifying body. So a lot of times those assessments cannot be changed. However, in courses where it can be, we can really tailor it to assist the students once again in, at the end of this assessment, what is it that we wanted to know? It is an assessment of your learning. So let's say, for example, if you're going for a state certified exam, such as nursing, yes, that is your tool for the assessment of that learning. If you're taking the SAT or the GRE to get into a college, that is an assessment of what they have learned throughout their high school career or throughout a specific time period. But once again, it is to achieve a particular grade. Whereas in the formative, I really want to see what else can we do in order to make changes prior to that summative assessment. In the summative assessment, if you notice, I said it doesn't always include the student. It doesn't always involve, because as I heard in some of the prior speakers, the test is already created. It cannot be changed. As we know with the SAT and here in the States, it's already created. Common Core in our K-12 system already created. The students must take this test in order to. It is an assessment of their learning. So I need everyone to pull your cell phones. So I know you all have one of these devices. Just grab your cell phone for me, and I just want you to open up your camera. And I'm sure you're aware of how this works. So all you have to do is point it to the screen. Oh, is there a question on the floor? I'm sorry about that. Okay, so I just want you to take just a quick snapshot there. So just point your camera. I'm sure we're all used to now seeing these QR codes because they actually became so prevalent during the pandemic, where now any areas you go into, restaurants are using these in order, instead of giving you menus, you can order anything using a QR code. Well, guess what? you can use it in your class as well. This is a way of creating a quick assessment of your students, really just to see, are they with you? Are they paying attention? It gives you immediate feedback. So I just asked one quick question. How do you assess your students? We are all educators. As we think about access and opportunity, these are some of the things that we really left, or we took it for granted before COVID-19. We really were not thinking about, are we really worried about how many of our students have access to laptops or to reliable internet or any of those services? But now we really need to take a look and ask, how are we really assessing our students? Do they have access and do they have the opportunity? So did everyone get a chance? I trust that you did, and I will share the results with you at the end. So, innovative assessment methods. I've been tasked with really giving you some of the examples of what we do at Monroe for innovative assessments within our online environment. So a lot of times when we talk about online, we tend to think about students doing their work at the same time or on their own within a specific time period. Or it could be virtually, which is, and I may use that term as well, the virtual environment means similar to how they would sit in your classroom at a specific date and time, Mondays at 9 o'clock, they will then be coming into your classroom at that same time, except they're doing it remotely. So here are some methods that can be used in either virtual, a hybrid, or a fully online method. Once again, thinking about formative and summative assessments. Timely feedback is what formative, once again, I keep saying those words, timely feedback on mastery of the course material and the learning objectives. So timely feedback in order to give our students the ability to do a self-check, the ability to do some type of reflection, the ability to say, hey, if I got these two questions incorrectly and the feedback told me go back to this chapter, do I have now the ability to go back and resubmit? We heard that before, all right? Student-led discussions, put the learning in the hands of the students. So instead of just having a discussion forum and you're opening up for the entire class to do, you have a student lead the discussion. They are the ones who create the discussion, and then they will facilitate it in the same manner in which you can do it. You can do student-led discussion or group-led discussions. You can have them challenge each other. Give one group a pro, give another a con, and then let the learning come forth in that way. Low stakes group work. If your students are anything like mine, they don't like to work in groups. They don't want to work in groups. But for those of us who are in the workforce, we know you are going to have to work in a group sometime within your lifetime. So we give them those items in order to build. Remember, formative versus summative. Are we doing assessment for learning or assessment of the learning? Once again, formative assessment allows the instructor the ability to modify. So if we see something is not working, we can switch before it gets to the final exam or to that midterm or to that high stakes exam that we will be offering. Summative, however, is used to assign some type of grade, okay? I heard some of the questions before where it was asked if the student did poorly on the final exam or on the final project, do they fail the class? Why should it be one grade that really decide what happens to these students in a particular class? What we saw once again in the pandemic is that it really changed the way we look at even summative assessments. It changed the way we look at state mandated exams because New York really, we went into shutdown in the month of March of 2020. everyone was at home. Students were no longer in classrooms. And then this is where we saw really the disparities. This is where we saw that opportunity and access was not the same for each other. This is where we saw that our students couldn't take the Regents exams because they did not have the tools. So how did we then go about assigning a grade to these students? We really had to think of unique ideas. We had to say, we can no longer just give them a test. A lot of times our exams were on paper. So we really had to rethink that. We had to quickly make adjustments to a learning management system or an online quiz site or exam site. And there's tons of them coming up in the presentation that I can give you, where you can create quizzes or tests on the fly, different type of assessments and discussions. So what we ended up at Monroe doing for those courses where it was departmental exams or those type of exams that were just assigned by grade, state mandated exams, we really had to flip how those were provided to the students. So within our LMS, we created exams. Within our LMS, we created discussion forums. Within our LMS, what we did was, instead of giving an exam, we gave a project. And if the project included, for example, creating a sample size or going out and interviewing, because those were the type of assessments that were provided, we then had to create, let's say, for example, in our statistics class, where the students had to come up with a random sample of 50 individuals, and they would go out and create the sample size and then decide these were the results. We created something in Excel that randomly generated that, and we sent it to the students. So each time a student would open it, it would generate different numbers for them to use. Now it became, you are using different tools in order to get to the same result. You're still doing the project, but we're allowing you now the opportunity to use different methods in getting to that project. We allowed them to do portfolios. Show us, based on the past 14 or 15 weeks, what have you learned? We created portfolios within our LMS, or we used a website such as Wix in order to see if the students really could show us, demonstrate that they have learned what we wanted them to learn, right? And if you notice, the last bullet says instructors in all instances should provide rubrics, descriptive guidelines. What is it that you are trying to achieve? In all of our assessments, there must be guidelines. Students should be able to see what is the end result. Give them something to work towards. Then it doesn't become just a surprise at why did I get a 75 and not a 90 that I thought I was going to receive. And once again, students all want 100. Why didn't I get that A? So in all that we do, we always keep in mind Bloom's taxonomy, because we want to ensure that our assessments are not just low stakes knowledge. So if you notice Bloom's taxonomy, knowledge, comprehension, application, and analysis of synthesis is really going low to high level, analysis being the high. A lot of our assessments are built up of multiple choice, true and false matching. Sometimes we may throw in a short answer or an essay. Okay, that shows knowledge. Comprehension says, now let me see you do something with that. Create a simulation for me. Create something that shows me a little animation. Create a tutorial that you can utilize. Application says, yes, I may give you a multiple choice short answer and essay, but can you then build it into a case study? Can you then use it within a game? And there are sites that allows the students to create, for example, one of the very easy one is to create a word cloud. So all of the various vocabulary that students may be learning within a particular course, we have them now create a word cloud. And from that word cloud, they have to do a presentation. It now becomes application of what has been taught in that class. Analysis and synthesis, once again, we're adding in the projects and the portfolios. We're adding in the presentations, of course, papers, virtual labs, any type of simulations. And this can come from either things on the web, free or paid, or it can come from also your publishers. So those of you who may be using Pearson or McGraw-Hill in order to do your textbooks, a lot of these companies allow the students to also use simulation and virtual labs. So here's an example, 3 different examples of assessments within our online environment. So if you notice, the first one points to a midterm exam. It is a timed exam. It has specific release conditions, and it is proctored. So we also want to ensure the validity of our exams. So that one is a traditional midterm exam that is proctored. The second example, however, is where the students are creating a 30-second video using a tool called Animoto. It gives them the ability to once again apply, show us that what you have learned over the past week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, however it may be. Create for me a video, a life story using photo, text, and music. That's all. It showcases now the skills and allow the students to apply knowledge in a different way. And take a look at the final project at the end. It is a portfolio using Wix, W-I-X. Once again, free. These are all free platforms. Animoto is free, Wix is free, and once again, it allows the students to be able to showcase their learning in a different way. They are demonstrating that they have learned the tool without just taking an exam or a test. It is a different form of assessment in a digital portfolio. So you give them specific requirements, once again, a rubric on what is to be included within the portfolio, and then they can use their own creativity to say, these are the things that we want to be able to do. It becomes very subjective on the fact that the students can use their own creativity. However, based on the rubric is how the grades are applied. So as I mentioned, there are publisher-based tools that are available to you. These are just a few of what we use here at Monroe. Pearson MyLabs, Alex for our math students in order to demonstrate their knowledge. It allows them in either the MyLabs or in Alex to do simulations, to do all kinds of videos and games. And based on that, we can use those either for formative or for summative assessments. McGraw-Hill Connect is another example. These are built-in publisher tools that you can utilize in your classes based on the textbooks, of course, that you are using. If you are using open source, no textbooks, then you would go down to maybe doing interactive presentations using Kahoot or Prezi or Mentimeter. Quizzes similar to what we just did with the quick poll using FlexiQuiz or Poll Everywhere. Once again, giving the students the ability to participate in their own learning, 4 versus 2. And like we did with the QR code for our quiz, or even a scavenger hunt, something that we did during the pandemic in one of our classes is to allow, it was based on museums. So because we could no longer go to the various museums to look at the artwork or artifacts, what we were able to do was do a scavenger hunt online. So students could tour the museums virtually, and then based on that, create their own QR codes built into a presentation that allows us to now see that they completed the coursework and were able to apply that knowledge within a scavenger hunt. So in all that we are doing, you heard me mention online quite a number of times. We want to make sure that our tests, our assessments are validated. We want to make sure that there is no room for any academic integrity violations. So based on the tools that we're using, one of the first things you want to do is make sure that the students cannot simply Google the answers. If you are using test banks, please know the answers are out. All you need is one student to take that test and to share it with the rest of the world. Social media is wonderful, but it can also be a horrible, horrible event when it comes to education and the sharing of information. So please be sure when you are given any type of assessment that it's not something that can easily be Googled and the answer be found. Back in my day, we had crib notes. Now the students have Google. We also utilize a number of proctoring services. So when we're given those high stakes exams, when we're given those exams that are certifying in nature, we use proctoring services such as Examity or Proctorial or Respondus Lockdown Browser. These are all, they're not free. None of those proctoring services are free. However, if you do have some high stakes exams, this is some place that you can utilize. So Examity allows the students to take the test at their own time. They're open 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So the students can schedule to take the exam. However, there is a live proctor on the other end. Proctorial is the same way. It is built into, so for example, McGraw-Hill has it built into a lot of their assessments. The students will be proctored as they take those exams. You as the instructor can decide whether you want to allow them to see the proctor or not. You can turn that on and off. Respondus Lockdown Browser is something that my faculty asked for. They pretty much asked, especially when we went into the pandemic. They asked for that lockdown browser because it keeps the exam within your learning management system. It keeps the students from going out to Google or going out to any of the other websites in search of the answers. You may say, well, they can still do it on their phones. The monitor side of it is doing just what you see now. It's a live video. So it monitors us as we are going through. So you also want to ensure your exams are valid. So take a look at this. The future of our schools. How societies across the globe will change in the next 20 years. How will they change in the next 20 years? All right. So we know home learning is really what we're in right now, right? We do have some schools that will be reopening in September for on-site learning, but we had to quickly shift into that environment where everyone was at home. And we saw that there were a lot of challenges, especially with technology, the stability of the internet, the access. Do we have a stable internet provider? Do we have a computer? All right. But what we're seeing is a lot of parents now are asking, hey, you are telling me that my child has to come back into the classroom. How about if they want to stay at home? We see that here at Monroe. While we have on-site classes scheduled for our fall semester, we see that a large population of our students still want to be in the remote environment. They want to be at home. They want to be able to then log in to their classes, whether it is a virtual, a hybrid, or it is a fully online environment. But you have to think about the distractions, the enablers, the infrastructure. Those are things that are constantly under evaluation by not only the instructor, because it affects the students, because it can affect your assessment. So when you're looking at those results, please know it is not always about the teacher. It is not always about, a reflection, I should say, on the instructor. Sometimes it really is about the distractions or the access and opportunity of our students. So one more quiz. So if you will pull your phones for me, indulge me for another quick minute. please pull out those cell phones again and just answer this question. Do you think high stakes assessment will continue in higher education? Now, I think I know what the results are going to be based on the questions that I heard prior, but I also heard someone say that they wanted us to start writing some articles and do some research. So pardon me if you're a part of my research today. Will high stakes assessment continue in higher education? That is the question that we'd like to ask. So if you'll grab your cell phones and just please take a moment to just point to that QR code and answer that question for me, I would be forever grateful. So finally, we truly believe that every student can learn. Not on the same day, definitely not in the same way. That was said by George Evans. Michelangelo at the age of 87 says, hey, I'm still learning. Jacinth Coltman's motto is never stop learning. So as you go through the rest of the symposium, please remember, we are here to redesign. We are here to really reimagine. And we definitely want to know that questions are a part of your learning. So please, are there any questions? Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Coltman, for that wonderful presentation. Quite a bit of it has resounded with me, and we are just checking to see if there are any questions coming in to pose to you. So just give us a moment, Doctor, as we check these. And if there are any questions, please, persons, faculty, members here, online, we're asking that you do send your questions in quickly. We are still working with a time constraint. We have a comment here from a Miss Audrey Reed. The presentation was nice. I must commend you on your applications of assessment tools and in making a comparative analysis of the different methods of assessment.
I do thank you for that comment. Just know one of the things at, just to be full disclosure here, when we went into the pandemic, one of the things that we really had to switch at Monroe was really the thinking of our faculty, because for those of us who taught online, it was no problem. We were used to it. This is what we did, for the past 10, 15, 20 years. We were used to technology in the online environment. We were used to doing these type of assessments. But for our on-site professors, for our faculty members who were used to paper, it became really a relearning. Just as we are expecting the students to learn new technologies and new tools, we also had to do that with our faculty. Our saving grace, however, is we do continuous assessment and we do continuous professional development. So our faculty knew that Blackboard was the learning management system and you were expected to do certain things within Blackboard. So that switch was not as detrimental to us as it may have been to other schools or faculty, because we truly believe in that. And I think if your faculty members, if the members of the CCCJ, if your schools and your partners will really take on that, the ability to really self-reflect, assess, and just keep doing that over and over again, you will see that any type of change that comes about is really for the benefit of not just your institution, but also your students as well.
Okay, Doc, we have a question here from a Miss Nicole Bailey. I believe I've heard of assessment as learning. Can you speak to that? Does it really exist? How does it work?
So assessment of learning is exactly what we were talking about when we said now the student can actually create their own questions. So you put the learning in the hands of the students. So where they are now creating that portfolio, that is their learning environment. They are now saying, I am applying, it becomes the application of the learning. As they go out into the workforce, internships is an application of that learning because the skills are now coming into practice. It is assessment as the learning environment. As they go into, so for example, our clinicians, our nursing students, our clinical students, our DMS students have to go into those environments in order to put that learning into play. It becomes assessment as learning. They are being assessed on the job, not so much within the classroom or with an exam. Does that answer?
She has not responded if that has answered her question, but to me it has. The next question I believe here is a follow-up. She was asking, can we get the results of the quiz? And is there a specific website used to generate the quiz items?
Yes, so the website that I used was just a quick website called FlexiQuiz, all right? FLEXIQUIZ, FlexiQuiz was what I used. So let's see what the reports are. So on the first one, where we asked about high stakes, the summary results was that. The question was, do you believe that high stakes exam, oh, I guess that was the second, but in any case, do you believe that high stakes exam will continue in education, in higher education? 32 of you said yes, 11 said no. So 74% responded that yes, high stakes exam will continue, and 26% responded that no, it would not continue. All right, so that was the one on high stakes. Let's go to the other on how do you assess. On how do you assess, the response was, how do you assess your students? Not surprising. 6% said formative, 2% said summative, and 92% says a combination of formative and summative assessments.
Thank you so much, Dr. Coltman. We have another question here from Thermute Solomon, and it reads, is that the same, and I'm assuming they're referring to the assessment as learning, is that the same as a diagnostic teaching?
Diagnostic teaching in the form of? I'm not sure I understand the diagnostic teaching, because you can have that in the form of simulations, or you can have that in the form of, it could be also a diagnostic exam where the results are tailored towards the student's answers. So I'm not sure which one you're referring to. So if it is,
it was not stated exactly, but I'm assuming that it was linked to the question before, where she was asking about assessment as learning.
Right. So in the diagnostic, if you're thinking about a diagnostic exam as in a simulation, we have some exams where they are tailored based on the question prior. So depending on how the students answer a question, the second question changes. It randomizes based on the previous answers. Then you can have also diagnostic exams that are based on skills. All right, so it becomes a skill level as well. So that's why I wanted to know which ones were you referring to.
Okay, Doc, they have not clarified that. So I'm going to close off right here as I'm not seeing any more questions. So Dr. Coltman, I must thank you greatly for coming and presenting to us today. You have opened up our minds or refreshed some of us as it relates to assessment of and for learning. Thank you for the participants who did, pardon. I have a comment here, Doc. I'm going to read it before I finish. It says, a well-timed, executed, and comprehensive presentation. The question here from a Shane Taylor is, what was your approach to getting stakeholder buy-in? So support from your administration, teachers, students, etc.
So I must give definitely all of the accommodation to the college as a whole. As you know, this is my 27th year at Monroe, and I think I've had the full support of administration when it comes to technology integration. The faculty as well, I guess, over the years have allowed me to try new things, really. So I've never had any issues with getting the buy-in from administration, the faculty, or the students. I usually do a pilot before I roll out any of the tools within the college. So for example, anything that we utilize within the classroom, I will ask for volunteers to pilot it within their classes for a semester. And then based on that pilot, I then will roll it out to the college community as a whole. So I usually get stakeholders from the online environment, from the on-site, the on-ground classroom environment, and also in the hybrid model to test out any of the tools that we will use. So for example, Respondus is one of the newest ones that we brought in, and that was brought in during the pandemic, and that's exactly how we rolled it out. We rolled it out the semester prior with the online and some volunteers from the on-site community. So once it was then rolled out, during our spring and our fall of 2019, 2020 semester, it was open to the entire college.
Thank you for that response, Dr. Coltman. We have a request here. Someone would like you to share the assessment tools again.
Sure. So I will send the presentation to Dr. Powell Wilson so that, you know, just because time of the essence, and I know there's another presenter. So I will share the entire presentation with Dr. Powell so that she can then disseminate it however necessary. Okay. And I will put, you know, you guys can share my email address in case anyone has any questions or if I can assist you further.
Thank you so much, Dr. Coltman. We sincerely appreciate you and the time out that you have taken. And we thanks to all the persons who posed questions. And thank you, the audience, for being the kind of audience that you were. Thank you again, Dr. Coltman. Do have a wonderful day.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Gail and Dr. Coltman. Again, another inspiring, interesting presentation. Colleagues, we are trying to catch up with them. Well, we can't catch up with time. We are trying to see how we can manage the time as efficiently as possible. So I'm giving 2 minutes for you to stretch again while Mr. Cox and Dr. Harrigan prepare to do the next presentation. Mr. Cox is the moderator and Dr. Harrigan is our presenter. So please take 2 minutes to stretch. So we'll come back at 10:38. Okay, welcome back. Great. Before Mr. Cox comes in, just want to remind our audience that we invite your comments, your questions, your queries in the chat. Type them in the chat and we'll feed them to our presenter. That's one. Two, reminding you to register for the symposium. Why do you need to register? So that you can get your certification. To get your certification for attending the symposium, you must register. And at the end of the symposium, that's tomorrow, we will post some questions and you respond to those and you get your certification. So over to you, Mr. Cox.
Thank you very much, Dr. Powell Wilson. Good morning, colleagues. Mine is the task to introduce our next presenter in person of Dr. Gastrid Harrigan. He is a principal at Broward County Public School and an adjunct professor at Broward College and Colorado State University Global. He has over 17 years of educational experience, ranging from K-12 classroom, undergraduate, and the graduate level teaching to school-based administration and principalship. He frequently speaks at national conferences about leadership, curriculum, school culture and climate, social emotional learning, and trauma-informed practices. Previously, Dr. Harrigan worked as a high school math teacher and assistant principal at the elementary, middle, and alternative levels for over 17 years. Prior to education, he worked in the engineering field, labeled as an at-risk student and retained for 2 years. He overcame personal struggles and setbacks to graduating in the top 5% and pursued an engineering degree with a full academic scholarship. He holds a Bachelor of Science degree in Electrical Engineering and a Master of Science in Educational Leadership, K-12, from Florida Atlantic University, and a doctorate in education in administrative leadership for teaching and learning from Walden University. He's married to Deborah, and that union has produced 2 sons and a daughter. Ladies and gentlemen, please make welcome Dr. Gastrid Harrigan.
Good afternoon, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
All right. Good afternoon, everyone. And before I get started, I just want to thank you, Mr. Cox, for the introduction. I truly appreciate it. And thank you so much to Dr. Wilson for this invitation. And I just want to thank everyone for making today possible. Everyone who was involved in the planning process of making today possible. So I know we are pressed for time, so I'm going to move quickly. My session is on assessment reimagined, innovative approaches to engage and assess students, both during and post-COVID. For those of you who are on Facebook, on YouTube, I have posted a link that we're going to use to engage in some interactiveness. So please click on that link, and in a few minutes, we'll be able to jump in and share your thoughts. So these are the goals for this session. I'm not, because of time, I'm not going to read it to you. But again, the goal here is to share some ideas that you can take and use into your classroom. I must also say my colleagues prior to me, Dr. Gordon and Dr. Coleman, did an awesome job. And truly some of the things they have shared are also in my presentation. So they have done a great job in sharing some of those information. So some stuff may seem a repeat. For those will maximize the time by moving expeditiously. These are some of the ways you could connect with me on various social platforms. To get started, you can join, we're gonna answer these questions on Nearpod. You could use the link if you are watching on YouTube Live. I put it on the link. It should be under my school name, Cypress Run Education Center, or you could, on your devices, use join.nearpod.com. I'm going to unshare for a minute so that way I could see who's joining me answering these questions. What is assessment? How do you use it in your classroom? We are pressed for time, so we ask that that you quickly join me into this session. Do we have any participants? I'm going to bring back the PowerPoint. Again, just share your thoughts. We are pressed for time, about a minute. I would like for you to share your thoughts. What is assessments? And I know we've heard about it today. And how do you use it in your classroom? Anyone? Can everybody see my slide?
Yes, we can.
Okay. All right. Hopefully you are able to log in. I don't want to take too much time. But again, this tied to at least using Nearpod ties to some of the things we'll be talking about. Because again, as I was preparing, I'm here in Florida. I am from the islands, not necessarily Jamaica. I'm from Haiti, but grew up here in the US, came here when I was 10. One of the things, as some of my predecessors mentioned, is that during this COVID, whether it's in the US or in the islands, our students are pressed, and we can use some of these assessment tools to really try to engage our students. That's some of the ways. All right, so we have few participants, so we're gonna go ahead and begin the assessment. So you'll see it on the screen. Again, those are some of the ways as a professor, as a faculty meetings, you can use Nearpod to really get right feedback, because sometimes as a college professor, whether it's at Broward College or teaching virtually online, sometimes we are wondering, is our students are paying attention? That's one of the ways we can use the discussion format by allowing our participants or students to share. So what is assessments? If you jump right on, then here we go. And what you will see on your device as you share your thoughts, you could click on the heart. If you see something that you like, a statement or comment that you like, and you really like it, you can click on the heart and says, oh, this really connects with me. Thank you for those of you who are jumping on. Again, if you are watching us live on YouTube, the link is also is in the chat, so please jump in. Thank you. Again, as you type, again, if you like what you read, just click on the heart as a way of saying, you know what, this connects with me. Again, I want to thank all of you for participating. You can post more than one assessment. As you will notice here, I am not necessarily showing the names, but as you just saw with a click, I could see who's responding and who's not responding. Again, you could make it anonymous depending on the class, depending what you're trying to get. Again, it up to you as a professor if you want to show the student's name, if you want to remain anonymous. But again, you could turn that on. You always can see in the background as the professor or the teacher. But again, thank you for all of you for participating. We're going to move to the next question because of time. Again, your screen should refresh. And now, how have you used it in your classroom? Again, there are many and there are different type of assessments, which we'll get into, which Dr. Coleman and Dr. Gordon did an awesome job sharing the various types of assessments and how you can use them to really measure and assess how students are doing. Again, we'll just wait for a few minutes to get some feedback. As expected, the feedback, the responses, I should say, that we are getting through both of these questions, obviously, are right on point. Obviously, as professors yourself and working at the college level, you definitely have a wealth of knowledge and understanding and bringing your experience. So I want to thank you again for your participation and continued participating and sharing your knowledge here. Again, as you can see, this collaborative board allows everyone to participate, right? I can look and see who's giving me feedback, who's sharing and who's discussing. And it allows each student, regardless of where you are, as many of us are throughout the world right now, and still are able to participate. So this allows us to really innovate some of the way we deliver instructions. Again, I'm going to move on because I'm pressed for time. But again, I'm going to leave it on in the background. You can continue to type, share your thoughts. But again, thank you to all of you for participating in that. So again, many of you shared, your thought and thinking about assessments. Again, assessments is the process of gathering evidence, right, about what your students know, how they're able to use that, right? If you're doing an alternative assessment, a project, basically their disposition toward that specific content area, and you could use that assessment to make inferences, right, to draw as evidence of either student master the learning or they are still struggling and we need to make some adjustments. Again, assessment is just an episode of learning, especially if it's not in a summative assessment, right? It's an episode of learning, depending when you, in that semester, in that quarter, when you give that assessment, it's just a slice episode. And I think Dr. Gordon spoke about that, not using just one assessment, one quiz, one test, one summative assessment to dictate the grade, but using plethora, many and different types. Again, it's a process of gathering evidence of what students can do. What are some of the purposes? My colleagues did an awesome job, including the chief assessment officer earlier, talking about how they use assessment at the colleges. Again, the four major purposes, again, is to evaluate students' achievement, monitor the students' progress, which is where really my presentation really focused on, but also to evaluate programs, and from the college department and assessment department level, making instructional decision, both from as a program standpoint, both as a professor, both as is this specific curriculum, is this specific program meeting its outcome? If students are in automotive, are they passing the automotive certification test? Then that determine, is the teaching, right, that's being delivered, is it effective? Is that program effective? So again, we could use these assessments to really make informative decisions. And as professors, teachers, educators, we could adapt, shift our teaching practices to make sure students are learning. There are two major types of assessments, formative and summative, as my predecessors indicated. Formative assessment, obviously, it's the assessment, right, that is taking place in the classroom, right? The goal of it is to improve teaching and learning. The goal of it is to assess whether students are getting the material, the lesson that you're teaching. And I like to tell my teachers, because I'm a school principal and right now we're in the middle of the school day, that we shouldn't have to wait till the summative assessment to know that students did not master the lesson or meet that specific standard, because there are a plethora of formative assessment we could use, whether it is entry ticket, whether it is exit ticket, and we could use different digital tools, which we're going to talk about, to really facilitate that. And obviously, summative assessment, which all of us are accustomed to, is the final test, it's the exam, it's the standardized test. Again, formative assessments allow us and the students to really clarify what good performance is. It also help us to reflect, both the student and the professor. Are my students learning? I like to say this to especially my teachers, is that if the students didn't get the lesson, you didn't teach, right? You didn't really deliver, because it's all about learning. It's all about growth. It is all about making sure that students are learning, mastering that content you are teaching, obviously at their own pace. But those formative assessments, if designed properly, could help us to improve teaching and learning. Because at the end of the day, it's all about making sure that students are learning and students are progressing. And even as a college professor teaching at both the bachelor's teacher education program and at the master's, those formative assessments allow me to assess, how am I doing as a professor? Are students really getting the material I'm teaching? And summative assessments allow us to assess, obviously, right, students' knowledge and competency based on the desired outcome, right? It allows us to draw, especially at the institutional level, at the assessment department could use that information to say, hey, is this curriculum, is this program, is this professors really, are we really learning? I think both Dr. Coleman and Dr. Gordon talked about that. Is our assessment aligned to what we are teaching? Right? Students could go through a class, get an A and fail the summative, fail the standard. So that means that the rigor in our class, rigor does not necessarily mean more difficult, much harder, but at the level we are teaching, right? When we talk about depth, when we talk about Bloom's taxonomy, or even if we move to Webb's depths of knowledge, right? The level we are teaching may need to elevate in our own classroom to make sure that we are preparing student for those summative assessments. So alignment becomes very important. Now, to move, again, I'm moving a little bit quick because I know we are pressed for time. But the idea is that whether when I was in school, both at K-12 and higher ed, that the kids that we have in front of us, whether it's at the college level, whether it's at the K-12 level, we really need to think about moving from paper pencil assessments, right, to more a digital continuous assessment process, right, as part of the teaching learning strategy in this digital age. Whether it's in the islands or in the state, all of our students have access to technology. Majority have a smartphone. How are we, and majority of them watching YouTube video on Facebook or on social media, how are we using or playing video games, right? How are we tailoring our assessment to ensure that we are meeting their needs? And how are we moving, there's nothing wrong with paper and pencil assessment, but how are we adapting our assessment to catch up with them? Because they're already taking assessments, various assessments on their cell phones or on their laptops. So before we move forward, jump back into Nearpod, and I wanted to know your thoughts. What are digital assessment tools, right, from your perspective, and how can you use them to engage and assess students in your classroom? So let's jump back to Nearpod and share your thoughts. Again, we are jumping back to Nearpod, and please share your thoughts on your device or on your laptop. What are digital assessment tools, right? And how can you use them to engage and to assess students in your classroom? Thank you so much for sharing. Again, after you're done sharing your thoughts, you can share more than one post. I invite you to read other colleagues by scrolling up, depending on the device you're using. If you're using a cell phone, sometime you may need to scroll up and scroll down to see your colleagues' feedback. And if you like it or if something connects with you, go ahead and click on the heart to indicate so. Again, thank you for all of you who are participating. If you just join us and you're unsure what we are doing, again, and especially if you're on YouTube Live, you will see the link. You could click on that link to join the conversation. Awesome. I see that through your posts, some of you are sharing on some of the digital tools I will be sharing. That's awesome. Again, thank you so much for all of you who are participating and sharing. Don't forget to, when you're done typing, to go back and read some of your colleagues' posts. And basically, again, if something you like, if something connects with you, feel free to click on the heart to indicate so. Okay, awesome. Due to time, we're going to jump back to the PowerPoint. Again, thank you so much for all of you for participating. Truly appreciate that all of you are participating and joining in on the conversation. You could continue. I'm going to leave it on running in the background as I get back to the presentation here. All right, having some technical difficulty here. You know, you always have to have some technical difficulties. I am so sorry here. I'm going to unshare and reshare. I don't know what happened, but again, thank you for your patience. I'm not sure what happened, but it seemed like we are back on. Thank you for all of you who participated. Truly appreciate it. All right, so some of you already indicate some of that. I'm not going to read everything out to you, but what are some of the benefits of digital assessments, right? It provides variety, and it's really authentic assessments, right? And you are able, depending on the digital tools you use, to adapt your feedback. It allows you, give you some level of choice and timing. Especially with COVID, students, it could be live, as I'm doing it now, as you deliver your lecture you teach, or you could set it up where it is self-paced. Nearby that we are using, it can also, the same questions can be self-paced. Students could log on at a different time and be able to provide and be able to participate and share their thoughts. Also, you get immediate feedback, both from students and also giving some of that feedback to students, especially if you set it up to grade automatically. It's an opportunity for peer and self-assessment, and I would say reflection, right? And that is the key thing, as some of my predecessors, some of the presenters before me indicated, providing that immediate feedback so that students know how they are learning, how they are progressing, and how they are meeting your class specific standards and learning and progressing in the lessons. So these are some of the benefits. What are the impact of digital assessments, right? The goal is that it enhances the student experience. It becomes more engaging. They're not just sitting there and getting, right? We know most of us, or if not most students, remember about 10% of things that is said to them, right? But if you involve them, they are hands-on, they're discussing it, it increased to 80-90% of retaining that information. So it enhanced the experience, it improved the student's outcome, and also, you know, with technology improvement, it allows you to balance the security and equity trade-off, and that becomes very important. But the key thing for this presentation, of all using digital tools for assessment, is really improving the student experience, which would make it more interactive, which forces them to get involved, discuss, therefore they retain more information, therefore they improve their outcome in the classroom. Now, take a minute and read this quote. I wanted you to read this because, again, human beings differ from one another, right? And there's absolutely no reason to teach and assess all individuals in an identical way, right? All of us learn differently, right? While if you heard in my biography, I stayed back twice. Part of that reason was because I was a different type of learner. So as I matriculate through K-12 education, I realized I learned a little bit different. It had to be hands-on for me. I had to use it, I had to apply it, right? So every student in your classroom learned a little bit different, especially the type of learners we have today. They are really digital natives, right? While most of us are falling to the technology or afraid of the technology, most of the students we have in front of us embrace it. In fact, most of them were born during this technology revolution. So it's important that we differentiate how we assess, how we provide formative and summative assessments. I know I logged in and I was listening earlier. There may be some institutional constraints in terms of certain assessments are supposed to be done in a specific way, but those are summative assessments, right? Those are assessments that are happen at the end. But you have within your power, within your classroom as professors, the ability to create and adapt your assessment. So as we move with this, innovative ways to engage, innovative approaches to engage and to assess students during and post-COVID, I want to just focus on digital assessments, and hopefully I'll also have some time to talk about how we're meeting students' social emotional needs. So these are the 5 ways I'm going to share. You don't have to write all of them down. I will share the PowerPoint afterward. But this quote is very important. When teachers know their students well, whether it's at the college level or the K-12, right, they can build strong connection that leads to better learning. Knowing students' interests, strength, and weakness allow you, the professor, to tailor that learning experience, right? By knowing your students based on your content you're teaching, based on the levels of students, based even on the age of your students, right? You are able, by knowing that information, you are able to tailor the learning experience, the formative assessment, even to a certain extent, those summative assessments that are within your control. There's more within your control than you think. Let's not focus on the summative assessments that has to be given for the college level, but let's focus on those you use for grade in your classroom, right? Those you have power over to a certain extent, and you can adapt them, shift them to really provide choice, to really allow different learners to demonstrate their learning in a different way. We all doesn't have to necessarily do a PowerPoint. We all don't necessarily have to do a quiz. It could be demonstrated in different ways. All right, Google Forms. And most of you probably knows about Google Forms, so I'm going to move a little bit quickly. Designed by Google, obviously. It was designed for surveys, but it has evolved into teachers and professors. I've used it for quick quizzes, for even summative assessments. It's very quick. It's very user friendly. You could use different types of questions, and I'm going to quickly show you the video. Let me know if you can't hear the video. Can you hear it?
Google Forms are a really easy way to get information, understanding, and opinions from students, parents, and teachers alike. To create a Google Form, all you have to do is click on New.
If you cannot hear the video, please let me know.
You'll be presented with an edit screen that looks like this, where you can choose a title. You can choose lots of different types of questions, from multiple choice to paragraph text. You can also add in images and videos over here. When your form's ready to go, you can send it out by pressing this blue button down here. You have a few options. You could either send a web link, you could email students directly, or embed in social media or on another website. The best thing about Google Forms is it all automatically comes back into a Google spreadsheet for you. This is an example exit ticket that I made at the end of a bid maths topic. So it lets me know immediately which students did and didn't understand the lesson, gives a quick run through of some answers and also some further questions. Even better, Google automatically creates a summary of your responses. So for the visual ones amongst you, you can easily see which answers were the most popular. Good luck creating forms. They can be used for anything from student surveys, in-class tests, pre-topic tests, or just sign-up sheets.
Again, I've used Google Form as both a quick exit ticket. Exit ticket, if you're not accustomed to it, are things you can use before students leave your class. They have to complete this specific exit ticket. It could be questions. It could be really is to assess that day, did the students get and understood my lesson. The other one you can use is Kahoot. I love Kahoot. The reason being I love Kahoot is because it's game-based assessment. I've used it both K-12 and I've used it for at college. In fact, when I first started using it at the college level, the students loved it because, again, you get to create the questions. So it can be any questions you want. But the fact that it's game-based, bell is ringing here at the school. The fact that it is game-based means that students get to compete with each other, especially if you're using it live. You could, again, host it as a live game in the classroom, or you could set it up as assessment where students go through it on their own. But whichever format you use, especially if it is live in the classroom, is very interactive. It's game-based. Students love it. Again, it gives you different options, and it allows, again, students can log on using any device to participate. And why students love it? Because most of your students, even at the college level, they are playing video games. So the fact that it is game-based makes it very interactive, and students love it, both at K-12 and especially at the college level.
Hi, we're Kahoot. We're on a mission to make learning awesome. Our game-based learning platform is used by millions of people all over the world: teachers, students, company employees, and lifelong learners. Kahoot makes it easy to create fun learning games or trivia quizzes in minutes, anytime, anywhere. We call them Kahoots. It works for any subject, in any language, on any device. You can also discover and play existing games. There are millions of Kahoots in our library. Kahoot can be played in a live setting with questions on a big screen, or on your mobile device where you see questions and answers on one screen. As well as in schools, Kahoot is played in companies, at events, and even parties to make learning awesome. Sign up today at kahoot.com. Let's play!
Again, because we were pressed for time, if I had time, we would do a Kahoot game for each one. But again, those are different tools you can use to really assess students. And the fact that they are interactive, game-based. Again, you design those questions. Obviously, you could use pre-created questions that other teachers shared. But again, you can use them both in faculty meetings, right? Or using them as in the classroom to engage. This one, I think for our traditional professors, you will love Edpuzzle. Why? Because Edpuzzle is an interactive video website, right? That allows you to turn your video into an assessment. So I don't know if you ever, I know I've had this before I started using digital tools. You assign you assign the students a chapter or two to read, and they show up to class and you try to have discussions, and it's in the middle of the presentation, you realize nobody read the chapter, right? Nobody watched that video you assigned. But guess what? With Edpuzzle, you could take your own class lectures, or you could take a specific video on that content and upload it. And Edpuzzle allows you as a professor, right, to embed questions, embed comments, and whatever it is that you want to share in that video. You could take things out if the video is too long. But the key thing about Edpuzzle is that your own lectures or video, it allows you to embed questions, and students can run through those questions, right? So they have to answer it. So in the middle of the video, you can you could force them in the middle, you could put question in the middle of the video and says, now answer these 2-3 questions. So now they have to pay attention to be able to answer those questions properly. Or in the middle of the video, you could stop and your own voice, share interesting facts, summarize the content. But again, it allows you now to not just wonder, did they watch the video? Not just wonder, did they do the homework? But now you are able to assign it and see who did, who did not. And even before class began, you could say, hey, listen, I noticed you didn't watch the video, or I noticed you failed all the quiz, or in preparation for that specific class, let's say you assign it for homework, you already know who understood the content, right? Especially if you shared it as a flip model. And if you don't know the flip model, it's the idea that instead of assigning specific assignment, you assign your lectures, your lesson as homework. So that way, when students come to class, they already heard your lecture, they already heard your lesson. Now you could spend more time on collaboration, you could spend more time on discussion, you can spend more time on ironing out concepts, ideas that they didn't understand. But whatever way you use it, it's up to you. But the beauty of it is you could take your lectures, you could take any videos and embed questions and really use that to drive instruction when students return back to class. You could use it in the middle of the classroom, right? Self-paced. You could assign it for students to do before coming to class. That is the beauty of Edpuzzle. And I think if you're a traditional professor, you will love that.
Want to create amazing video lessons in minutes? Edpuzzle is your missing piece. With Edpuzzle, you can choose from the millions of videos available from YouTube, National Geographic, TED Talks, Khan Academy, and more. You can also reuse ready-to-go video lessons made by other teachers or upload your very own teaching video. Then, use Edpuzzle's video editor to create your perfect lesson. Embed your own questions to check your students' understanding, cut sections to show your students only the most important parts of the video, and even record voiceover so you can explain concepts in your own words. Once you've finished, you can assign it to your students in just one click and prevent skipping to make sure your students don't miss a thing. When you want to check in on your students' progress, use Edpuzzle's hassle-free analytics to get all the information you need. See who still needs to watch the video, what your students responded, and their total scores. So remember, with Edpuzzle's free platform, you can make any video your lesson.
You know, so I see in the chat as we were watching the video, can you use this for grading? You're the professor, you're the teacher. You could use it however you see fit. It's a formative assessment. You could use it to reteach. You could use it as assessment. It's really up to you how you use it. The idea is to differentiate, is to really move from the paper and pencil and embed some digital tools. Nearpod, I'm going to move quickly with Nearpod because we're running out of time. Obviously, most of you are participating right now with Nearpod, and we have one more coming. We'll use it one more time before I end. But again, I'm not going to show the video for this one because of time. But again, I love Nearpod. Nearpod allows you to do everything I just showed you within Nearpod. You can upload your PowerPoint and embed the videos right in Nearpod. Do it as a live. Like we've done this afternoon, or you could assign them. And Nearpod is awesome. It provides, again, plethora of ways to assess, whether it's a short quiz, whether it's poll, whether it's survey, whether it's game, whether it's a competition, whatever it is you want to do, Nearpod allows you to do it. I will just be honest with you, I love Nearpod. Because of time and we are using it, I'm going to fast forward on Nearpod and focus on Flipgrid. Now, Flipgrid is a video discussion platform. Now, the difference between Flipgrid and Edpuzzle, where you upload your video, Flipgrid is a little bit the opposite, right? So let's say you're teaching a class and students have to log into the learning management system, Canvas, D2L, Blackboard, right? And they normally type their response. With Flipgrid, students, you could post the same question, the same topic, and now instead of typing it in, they can turn on their camera, right, and record that video live. So now you're hearing them explain it, and you could set the time for how long those video responses could be, right? It could be 60 a minute. You could do it for 5 minutes, 2 minutes. It's up to you. But the whole idea is that students are still responding to the prompt, still responding to the questions, but now they're recording themselves, and they are able now also to respond to other colleagues in the classroom, right? Because they can listen to other students respond like you would do in an online discussion formats, right? And see how they are getting it. Instead of you not getting any feedback in the classroom, nobody's responding, they all now have to turn on their especially if you are, due to COVID, you are remote, or you assign it as a homework or as an assignment instead of typing. That's another way they can respond to whatever it is, the prompt you have, but make it video based and share it. And obviously as a professor, you can go back, listen, see who understood it, provide feedback, provide, if you want to use it as a grading, it's up to you. I love it because it allows me to hear the students' response in a different way. Because sometimes, especially if we're in the remote or online, since I teach online, I don't know who's typing those responses, right? Is it their spouse? Is it their friend? But now, because they have to be on camera, right? And they have to respond on camera, I know it's their response. I know whether or not they have depth of understanding based on their response, based on the response they're providing. Let's watch this quick video.
Welcome to Flipgrid. Flipgrid is a simple, free, and accessible video discussion experience for pre-K to PhD educators, learners, and families. In Flipgrid, educators post discussion prompts and learners respond with short videos. To get started, go to flipgrid.com and click Educator Sign Up to create a free Flipgrid account with Microsoft or Google. Once you've signed up, start the discussion by creating your first topic. Your topic can reflect on a chapter of reading, demonstrate an exercise routine, share a hypothesis, anything. I'll make this as simple as share one of your favorite discoveries. Add anything you want your learners to review prior to responding, such as links and videos, to foster enriching inquiry. You can also set the maximum recording time and choose to moderate your topic, meaning video responses will be hidden from your community until you approve them. Your topic is private to your learning community. Add the email domain of your learners, that's everything after the @ symbol in their email, or create a student list for younger learners. Add a guest password if you want to invite families or experts into your discussion. When you're ready, share with your learning community. All they need is this unique code. They can enter the code on the free Flipgrid app or on any computer with a webcam via the Microsoft Edge or Google Chrome browser at flipgrid.com. You can also copy and share this Flipgrid join link wherever you connect with your community, including Microsoft Teams, Google Classroom, and Remind. After clicking the unique link or entering the code, your learners will log in either with their Microsoft or Google account or the ID you created for them. Once in, they can see your prompt, access the text with the powerful immersive reader, and when they're ready, click record to add a video with the simple, fun, social media-style Flipgrid camera. Share these steps with your community by sharing the Getting Started Students video. For more ideas on how you can use Flipgrid, check out this video series.
Again, Flipgrid is a wonderful way to differentiate and provide a different way for students to share what they know. Right. Read this quote because we are pressed for time. I'm going to quickly read it for you. But technology enable assessments, right? Practices allow the practitioner to interact with learners in ways that would otherwise be impossible due to pressure of time and numbers. You may have a large classroom, whatever those challenges or constraints are, the digital tools allow you to really interact in a way that is very interactive and engaging. Now, I would like you to take 30 seconds and read this quote yourself. This study just came out right during over the summer, and then they surveyed undergrad students, right? And 61% of them indicated that they would like their assessment to be delivered online or through some combination of online and in-person delivery once this pandemic is over. So even though I don't know, those of you in the island, I don't know where you at in your COVID challenge. I know right now in Florida, we are the epicenter, right? While we are still open, but depending on where you are, whether you remote or face-to-face, students are saying, at least college students are saying, listen, even after this pandemic, we want to some of our assessment to be digitally based instead of just a paper and pencil. Now, I would like to transition from your formative and summative assessments. We are pressed for time. And move into and ask this question really to everyone at the college level, whether it's administration or faculty. How are you assessing, measuring, and supporting students' social and emotional learning? Now, all of us have been impacted emotionally, socially, psychologically through this pandemic. How are you using your non-academic assessment data, right? The data that says the number of students who are homeless, the data that says that the number of students who can't get online because they can't afford, they can't afford a technology, the laptop or Wi-Fi. Or I'm struggling to eat. How are you using that data, right, to meet their needs? Non-academic data, right? So when we talk about SEL or social emotional learning, it's the mindset, it's the skills, it's the attitude, right, that students need to succeed in life. And I like to say it this way, that most students, or most employees, I should say, I was having this conversation with a couple of, I'm the chair for my principal group. I lead the principals, about 22 schools in our cadre, we call it, and I lead that group. And when one of the things I was saying to them is that when you think about it, most faculty, most teachers don't get fired because of competency, but they get fired because of lack of social emotional skills, right? How you respond to pressure on the job, how you respond to challenges on the job with colleagues or even with administration. Those core skills, faculties need them. And guess what? The students need them, right? So why is it important? Social emotional development leads to higher academic achievement. The reason why I'm bringing it up is because if we don't provide an environment in our classroom or in our college campuses to meet those needs, then students can't really do their best because they are struggling on a personal level, right? We can't meet all of their needs, but how are we fostering that environment, that inclusive environment in the classroom or throughout the college campuses to meet those specific needs? We don't have time to go all into this. I'm a big believer of this. I'm a Castle School, but these are the 5 core areas, right? Castle, which is one of the organizations that provides material and research around social emotional, right? How are we helping students and faculty become more self-aware, help with their self-management, social awareness, right? Relationship skills and decision making, right? Those soft skills that oftentimes we overlook. But really, when a professor moves from university to university, college to college, a lot of times they blame the college, right? But really, is it really the college? Or is it you who don't know how to use those core skills to navigate that community, to navigate that environment? Because I see that we are pressed for time, I'm not going to jump into the survey, but again, we are going to jump back and use the survey portion, not the discussion portion, but the survey portion about what is your strongest and weakest area. We're going to move forward because of time, but again, just think about that as I move forward. Which one of these areas is your strongest and which of these areas you need to work on? Now, to wrap up my presentation, both to the administration and to the faculty, there are 2 areas I would challenge you that you can do tomorrow. Self-care days, right? Or mindfulness activity. And I'm challenging everyone to have faculty and staff self-care days, right? You'll see on these pictures, I'm down here, somewhere over here, right? That's me down here, but those are my staff here. How are you meeting staff needs? I like to say this, and I believe it applies to the college level. I like to say this, if I don't feed my teachers, they're gonna eat my kids. Let me say this again. If we don't feed the teachers or the faculties, they're going to eat our students. What does that mean? That means that if we are not creating an environment at the department level, at the college level, to meet and create a community of learning, to meet their needs, right? Faculty needs, then they take that stress, they take that burden on our students. So again, it's very important. A lot of time, colleges and schools, we say we don't have time to do it. And I would say you must do it. You have no other choice because again, that ends up boiling itself into the classroom. These are some of the things that we have done. And I'll be honest with you, all these things we have done have been all free, right? Because I partner up with community-based organizations. There are hospitals, there are doctors, there are different people you can partner up that will provide their service, right? And get some exposure while they meet staff and faculty's needs. Again, those are just pictures I'm showing you of things we've done. As you can see, not everything has been on campus. We've had bowling. I brought in therapists free of charge to give my staff massages, again, self-care days, different things we provide to meet their needs. Again, if we do not meet our teachers' emotional cell needs, they are going to eat our kids, right? They are going to come in and be stressful, especially during this pandemic. Again, this is our plan for 2020-21. As you could see how we do it. Even when we were on lockdown, right, we had cell because people were stressed out with COVID. There isn't a day that goes by somebody's not quarantining on my campus. So this is online, and this was a simple thing about reflecting on what you value the most: family, friends, whoever your network is. So you can do this even in the virtual world. The second thing I challenge that we all can do is mindfulness activities, right? As a professor, how are you starting your day? So at the college level, right, typically I start with jazz. Sometimes I change it up and play a music. Sometimes I do a check-in with students. That takes about a minute or two to check in with them. How are you doing? Do you need a minute to breathe? Do you need a second to wrap yourself? What's going on? I'm not a therapist. I don't get into their personal business, but allowing a moment to let them know it's okay. It's life, and you're gonna get through this. And when students are able to wrap their thinking, guess what? Take a brain break. Take a moment to just share maybe with a colleague or classmate. Then now they're able to focus more on the teaching and the learning. You could do rapid check-in with your student. Again, this is, don't say, well, faculty members, well, this is for the counselors. No, you can do this in your classroom. It will take about a minute or two, right? To just check in with your students, just have them self-reflect. They don't have to share. Now, to end, because I was trying to, I see that I'm over time, right? I would like you to read this quote, right? Take a minute and read this quote. Not everything that can be counted counts. Not everything that counts can be counted. So as we talk about innovative approaches, yes, use digital tools, but also use the non-academic data, right? As a college, as a department, as a faculty, to really provide an environment where students feel welcome, they feel supported. I've had students who show up to class and says, in tears because they're dealing with some medical conditions and family due to COVID. I said, listen, take the day off. I'm recording the lecture. I'll send you the notes. Take a moment, right? For that student, that's what's more important. Or they could sit to my lectures. They're not listening anyhow, right? But by meeting their needs, when they have a moment, look at my lecture or look at the notes, they are able to focus now once they meet that immediate need. At the K-12 level, I like to say, well, if we don't feed the kids on a hungry stomach, they can't really listen in the classroom. The same thing at the college level. I found that when my students walk in, whether it's on the virtual world, face-to-face, creating that inclusive environment, sometimes they say, just give me 5 minutes. Let me just step outside and recollect my thoughts. It's okay. Go ahead and recollect your thoughts. When you're ready, rejoin us. Just that specific moment. Tell them I care. Tell them it's not about just me delivering content, but it's about me as a human being connecting with you and meeting your specific needs. Again, I want to thank you. I know we are pressed for time, but I want to thank you so much for allowing me to present. These are some of the ways you could connect with me. Thank you so much. And this time I'll take any questions anyone may have.
Thank you very much, Dr. Harrigan. Can you all hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Harrigan, for that riveting presentation. I am pleased with the seamless manner in which you infused the assessment tools in your presentation and ensured that the participants also had an opportunity to engage using those tools. I really hope that my colleagues will use some of these tools going forward, and I hope that Nearpod, right, and the manufacturers will use you as the face of marketing for this educational tool going forward. So at this time, I'd like to invite the questions from my colleagues who are a part of the session. But while the questions are coming in, I have a question that I'd like to ask. You mentioned about the non-academic data, right, and how it influences instruction. With the concomitant issues and things that lecturers and teachers are faced with in terms of presenting their lectures, going to classes on time, marking scripts and all of that, do you think that it is the support staff, i.e. enrollment unit, the registry services, the counselors within higher education spaces should use that non-academic data as opposed to the classroom teacher themselves, or it should be a more collaborative effort?
Good question. Definitely, as professor, we're under time constraint. When I walk into my classes, depending on the session I'm providing, I have within an hour to 3 hours, depending on what track I'm teaching. But I believe it is both. Now, the bulk of it, I would say, for the non-academic data fall on the faculty, fall on the administration, the department to create activities on the campus, both virtually and physically, to meet those needs. But I also think it's important, for example, as a professor in Broward College, right? I know that the minority rate is high. The first-time college students are high, right? So I'm cued and aware of that. So when I deliver my lesson, I'm aware of the students in front of me and how I adapt my assessments or my learning experience to meet their needs. So I'm not providing them a long, drawn-out mindfulness activity, but by playing the jazz music in the beginning, during discussions or after class, by allowing brain breaks, right? A moment where they could recollect themselves. By allowing those small things allow students to feel cared for, valued, but also they could take a moment to recollect their thoughts, especially if they're having a moment. But the bulk of the activity should be done by administration, but there's a role for faculty to play in creating that conducive learning environment in the classroom. So I think it's both, but although the bulk of the activity in terms of self-care days, events, and things of that nature fall on the administration side of it. But again, we talk about also as faculty, how can you make the classroom itself more conducive? How can you shift your own thinking from punitive to more of a supportive, connecting? Because again, at the end of the day, if the students connect with you, they are more attuned to learning from you.
Excellent. Thank you, Dr. Harrigan. I have another question here that was posted in the chat. Of the online learning platforms and assessment tools that you would have suggested or used in your presentation, the question is asked, which is best to use to teach reading to grades 1 to 3 students?
Good question. I designed, there are plethora of digital tools. I would say, which I didn't talk about, Seesaw. I would say for K-3 elementary students, Seesaw, I would recommend Seesaw. It's both a digital tools and it's also LMS, learning management system. Now, you can use Kahoot. Again, it depends on, again, especially as you get younger grades, some of them, you may or may not have technology or iPads in the classroom. Now, Kahoot is a game base. Obviously, what they see on the screen is just 4 little boxes. So they can use that piece because it's fun, it's competitive. But I will really say, look at Seesaw, which I didn't talk about today. I was mainly focusing what can a college professor use with their students, right? With their undergrad students. But for elementary K-3, I would say Seesaw. But Kahoot could be done well depending if you have that in the classroom also. But again, as an assessment interactive tool, that could be used. But with them being the younger age, they may need help going through the technology. So I'm not sure. I don't think all 4 of them without assistance would be, all 5 of them would be the best way to do it. I would say Seesaw would be a better route for you because it's more catered toward elementary students.
Thank you very much for your response, Dr. Harrigan. I hope the question was sufficiently answered too. Are there any other questions? I'm not seeing any other questions. Again, let me just take this opportunity, Dr. Harrigan, to really express gratitude for taking time out to come and share with us with respect to the use of innovative online assessment tools and how it is that we can infuse it certainly in our practice. Thank you very much, sir. And the presentation was well received. We appreciate it. At this point,
thank you so much for the invitation.
Not a problem. At this time, I'd hand over to Dr. Powell Wilson.
Great. Thank you very much, Mr. Cox and Dr. Harrigan. What a morning, what an afternoon it has been. Hello?
Yes, Dr. Wilson, we're hearing you.
Okay, great. Great. We have come to the end of the first day of our Professional Development Symposium on Reimagining Assessment. I am sure you can all say that the presentations have been good. We are now even more empowered to try some of these assessment tools in our upcoming classes as we prepare for the new academic year. Dr. Colesman and Dr. Harrigan, on behalf of the CCCJ team, on behalf of JDTAN, thank you for your contribution this morning towards education. We can assure you that your presentation has caused a lot of discussion already. We are thinking how we can impact what is going on. We can utilize what you have shared with us. So thank you very much. To our viewers, again, thank you for sticking it out with us, for staying with us. And we look forward to seeing you tomorrow. We start at 9, same place. Please, your colleagues who are not able to join today, please invite them over. Tell them what you have learned, the interest that you have garnered, and just have them come over tomorrow morning. Reminding you to register, and tomorrow at the end of the session, we'll be posting some questions so that you will get the, can get your certification. The presentations, we're looking at packaging those so that those can be shared. So I'm going to ask that you ensure that we have your contact details so we can share safe. And of course, the videos will be available on the YouTube channel. Thank you to the technical team working behind the scene from the CCCJ and JDTAN for having us on since 9 o'clock this morning. And it was really a well put together showing from everyone. So thank you all and have a good afternoon. Get some rest. We have food for thought, reflect on what was done, what was said, and we come tomorrow morning looking, preparing for another exciting session. Thank you all. See you tomorrow.
Thank you, Dr. Paul Wilson.